Hello, guys. Welcome back to another session with myself and the lovely, excellent, very muscular Rob Goodwin from the US. We'll be answering questions today. Any sort of interesting bodybuilding questions you might have, diet, training, supplement, PED, anything related that you want, really. We're quite open books. Anyway, this is the best place to get your questions answered. But before we get into that, just going to say hello to Rob and get Rob to sort of cover anything he wants to cover right now in terms of recent news or updates for him.
Yeah, it's good to be back, and I'm glad I can hear you this time. I'm sure everybody's going to be stoked about that. It was kind of a one-man show the last time, so I'm glad we got that resolved. But Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to everybody. I mentioned this in a video that I did on my channel recently, but it's been a little insane because I'm actually moving gyms. And I've been in this particular gym for 12 years, and now I have to relocate. But thank God, a great opportunity sort of materialized thanks to a phenomenal client of mine who happened to have a building with a really nice gym in it that's move-in ready. So very little build out is going to have to be done. We just need to move all the equipment over there, and the location's even better. It's in a really nice, quaint part of the downtown area here where I live or where I work. So I've been chest deep in planning the move and doing all the necessary marketing and all those shenanigans to get everybody up to speed and ready for that big switch. So if everything goes well, we should be moved in and operating on February the 2nd. So looking forward to that. But other than that, it's just been holidays, family, training just enough not to lose anything for a few days there. Ate everything that wasn't nailed down, but I justified that by calling it a refeed, and that's what we'll leave it as. But that's about it, man. How about you? What's going on?
Yeah, pretty good, thanks. This was actually the first year in, as long as I can remember, I've not had to travel.
Good.
Just a heads up. I don't know if you can put the headphones on, because I think it's coming through your laptop. So your microphone is picking up my sound through your laptop, if that makes sense.
Okay. I wonder if just turning down the volume and switching to headphones will work.
It might work, yeah.
How's that?
So can I
Is
hear
that better?
anything?
Now I can't hear you. Son of a...
Yeah, we're just having some technical difficulties, guys. Both
Shocker.
Rob and I don't like using earphones or headphones. They're a real nightmare. But sometimes it depends how close our microphone is in proximity to the computer that we're using, which is where sometimes our sound comes out of. So
Okay, I think I got it. How does that sound?
that sounds perfect.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I figured it out. I don't, usually I need a 9-year-old to show me how to do this shit, but I don't have a 9-year-old currently available. So
Yeah,
but this old guy figured it out, so we're good.
nicely done. Yeah, nice one. Anyway, I think we should be about there now of technical difficulties. Yeah, I mean,
That's kind of the
it's great to
story with
hear.
us, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we'll get there. But you wouldn't have thought I used to run the best bodybuilding podcast in the UK. And here we are. Never mind. Yeah, my Christmas was good, thanks, and New Year was good. I'm not big on celebrations or going out, but I quite like the idea of just having some family around, playing some games, stuff like that, and a bit of food. Yeah, I mean, I had some, off-plan food. But what was interesting this year is I didn't take the mick. I sort of said to myself, I'm going to have this, then leave it at that. Wait till the next day, just have my normal food. But yeah, I feel better for it, actually. I didn't have a lag period in terms of you just feel sluggish afterwards. But the next day I was in the gym, so
Good deal. Yeah, I didn't go completely off the rails, but definitely had a few days off plan. And for those who follow me, they probably know by now my daughter is a professional baker. And so this time of the year, she just bakes nonstop. And there was everything you could possibly imagine in terms of pies and cakes and muffins and the like at my disposal. So it was a little difficult to push some of that away. So I did have quite a few dietary transgressions when it comes to what my daughter made. And, because you can't say no to your daughter. So But now I'm back on
Cool.
track, back training hard, back in the gym. So looking forward to 2026. And no, I'm not a New Year's resolution guy per se, but there is something nice about having a fresh start and getting past the holidays. And so I guess for me, it's just a shift in focus. I feel more focused and ready and really ready to go after it now. So I'm glad the holidays are behind us. For New Year's Eve, I was literally in bed by 8 p.m. And because, like you, I'm kind of a hermit. I'm not a big socialite. I just have a small bubble of my family and a couple of close friends, and that's the way I like it. So I was in bed by 8, up the next morning at 4, and it was just another day for me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same. I like to get stuff done early. I mean, most of my work with clients and that is on the Saturday or Sunday. I get most of my work done the weekends by about 9 o'clock in the morning. So.
Right. Good.
It suits me well. It frees up the whole weekends if I've got to see the family as well. It's nice, But yeah.
Yeah, for me, that just means more house chores, because my wife thinks that I'm sort of if you've seen some of these ridiculous home improvement television shows here in the US, for some reason, she thinks that's in every male's DNA automatically, and that I should be able to take, a hammer and a screwdriver and a drill and do absolutely anything she could possibly imagine, and then gets pissed at me when I can't replicate that. But I'm doing better. I'm actually getting pretty good at this shit now. So I'm usually doing something. We have a house that was built in the early 1920s, and she's like, we're just going to fix this up and make it nice. And she said that 20 years ago, and we're still doing it. So that's usually what's encompassing most of my weekends. So I'm sure I'll be back at it hard this weekend.
Yeah, it's a funny sort of paradigm, isn't it, being male? I mean, we sort of go to the gym, we build up all these muscles, and people look at us like, oh, yeah, they should be able to find that really easy. It's like, well, no, the act of like screwing something in a wall has nothing to do with going to the gym. Like, when do I do that in the gym?
It's not. And like we put in a ceiling, like this tongue and groove ceiling in this kitchen remodel. And it's a huge kitchen that extends into a family room, and you're putting up this tongue and groove ceiling, holding these boards over your head for like 8 solid hours, nailing them in. And, my wife's like, you got big, strong shoulders. What's the problem? And I'm over here freaking dying after like the 4th board, and had to keep going on like it was nothing. But I got through it and recovered. But thank God that project's over. That was a freaking nightmare. But yeah, everybody thinks just because you're bigger and you got a lot of muscularity equates to tons of muscular endurance as it would apply to a particular home improvement task. Doesn't really work out that way. So I've been getting my ass kicked.
Yeah, I know that one. I mean, I don't have to do any DIY myself, fortunately, but for a period of time, maybe like 8-9 years, well, about 8-9 years, I was a life model. You'd have to sort of stand these poses with your arms here, and you can imagine, like, it looks easy, like, you just get paid to stand or sit there or lie there. But then try that, but then having the same muscle in the same position for like 15-20 minutes. It's like,
well, as a competitive bodybuilder, I freely, openly admit that for me, posing is hands down the hardest part of it. So I get it, especially when you're practicing and you're holding particular poses for 15-20 seconds, trying to get to a point of conditioning where you're not shaking and you got cartoon sweat flying off your forehead. And so, yeah, I totally get that, man. So yeah, for those of you out there that are looking to compete, do your posing, because it's freaking hard, and you wouldn't think that it is, but it's absolutely brutal, especially when you're depleted, standing under hot stage lights. So take that pro tip, kids. Just practice your posing early, because you're going to want to get good at that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd suggest maybe for someone's first show at least, getting a posing coach. Just get something done weekly. I mean, you'll be there for like 20 minutes out of a 1-hour session. You'll be thinking, is it ending yet? But one little thing I actually like to do is I do my posing practice in the shower, so when it's actually quite warm. So it sort of emulates
I didn't need that visual, Jonathan. I mean, now I'm going to have to get that out of my head. Now I'm going to spend all afternoon trying to get that horse shit out of my head. Thanks. Now I'm going to have visuals of Jonathan posing naked in the shower. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, I shaved recently, Rob, so it's not so bad.
Thank God I have not. I look like freaking Chewbacca right now. So I don't shave a whole lot in the off season, and I look like a damn woolly mammoth. So yeah, but I'm gonna have to get this shit off at some point. But I will not be posing in the shower. But thanks for the tip. If my wife catches me posing in the shower, it's like there's no trial separation. It's instant divorce. So because that's just too freaking weird for her, I'm sure. But hey, do you, man. If you want to keep posing in the shower, I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I just think it sort of emulates being under the sort of hot lights, and obviously you're barefoot, so it's like how you would be on stage.
That's true.
So when I'm on stage nowadays, I don't sweat, I don't shake. Obviously some poses are, of course, I'm uncomfortable by default, but I don't have the same issues other guys have. You never catch me sort of like gasping for air or anything like that.
Yeah. But, and that's important too, because the judges take that into account. Every judge at one point was a competitor. And when they see you shaking, and then their instant thought is, okay, he's not conditioned. He didn't put in the work. And in the back of their mind, that's derogatory to them. So you want to always exude the greatest level of confidence that you can on stage, because it's a competition and they want to see you competing, and they want every element of that routine to be secure and to show that level of conditioning and to show that you've been putting in the work. So I know, from talking to judges, they hate that when they see guys or women up there just shaking violently and covered in sweat, because to them, they didn't put in the work. So I totally get that.
Yeah, the standard over here is getting nuts now. But I do notice a lot of people can't pose. So you're only as good as your weak point. You'll see a guy of great shape, a guy of great conditioning, a guy of great musculature. But if you all look rubbish on stage, like you just can't hold a pose, it's hard to look at. It's quite, it was when you see Arnold back in the day, and like, pumping iron, you think, oh, that's artistic. That looks good. That's a good angle. You don't sort of look at him and think negatively, But I wanted to segue from this actually onto like the contest prep season, I guess. We're probably about a few months away from really starting anything properly. But what's your next contest? That's chronologically.
All things going well, which it appears to be, I am 27 weeks out from Masters Nationals, which will be in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And over here, or I guess anywhere, because people do travel internationally for that show, it's one of the predominant Masters competitions over here. And clearly the goal at a national level competition is to get a pro card. And I did that once before back in 2021 and went into it. And I've told this story, severely over dieted, and nothing could pull me out of it. And my carb up went terrible. I got to a point where everything was just shutting down, because I literally had 3 weeks from the qualifier to nationals. And I kind of screwed up the segue going from the two. And I learned a lot from that. And, you learn from failures far more than you ever learn from successes. So I took stock of that, and I understand clearly what I need to do. But at least this time, I have a much longer runway to kind of reset. And I think we talked about this a little bit in the last time we did a live, that having gone through a 7-month prep and having being out of the game for 4 years prior, within that 7 months, not only do you have to get freaking shredded and conditioned, but you also have to compress a rebuild, like a recomp. You have to build that level of muscularity that's going to be required to stand on stage and compete, and then still have a long enough runway to get absolutely peeled. And for me, that was 7 months. I had to get that physique back and then still have enough time to get it shredded. Thank God it worked okay. And the plan worked perfectly. But now I have the luxury of, I've got the physique back. I'm sitting here right now at 223 pounds, where when I started my prep in early 25, I was like 193 and didn't have that look. And now I have that muscle there. So now it's just a matter of filling out some lagging body parts, which for me now is legs. And, but it's also given me the peace of mind of knowing that I have a long enough runway to keep the mass that I built during the 2025 prep and being able to get it peeled down again. And so I'm in a much better position for the national show, provided I don't screw anything up, and I don't foresee that happening. So I think the plan that I had for 2025, just re-implementing that for the nationals run, I'm fairly confident will go well. And you know this better than anybody. You never know who's going to be standing next to you. When you're at the national level, everybody there is amazing. And for me, as long as I do everything within my power, then whatever the result is, I'll take it. But I feel like I'm in a good position to compete. And at my worst, when I did it in 2021, literally the worst physique I've ever put on stage, I still place top 6. So I feel pretty confident going into this one that if I can bring what I had in 2025 with just a little bit more size in my legs, I think I'll be competitive, and that's all I can really hope for.
That's it. Yeah, we can't control who shows up on the day. I mean, my last contest, I had a guy who placed ahead of me. It literally looked like Cedric McMillan stood on stage. Obviously minus like, 50 pounds or whatever, but it was like his silhouette. And I was like, how am I going to beat this? Sometimes you just can't beat it. You can't out genetic someone. I was leaner than him and more muscular per, inch of height, but you can't beat the shape. It's impossible. But, you can only control what you can control, I guess. So.
Yeah, it's like back in the 90s. You hear stories all the time of guys that were competing against like a young Flex Wheeler. Even though they had more muscularity, when they saw that guy peel his freaking clothes off backstage, they were like, it's game over. I can't compete with that guy. Or in terms of the mass monster phase, like, from like 94 on, everybody else would look at Dorian and say, okay, we're all competing for second. Some people just have something you can't compete with at that time. And again, I can only control what I do. And if I'm standing backstage, my ritual backstage is I sit down minutes before prejudging and I say, could I have dieted any harder? And the answer hopefully will be no. Could I have trained any harder? Hopefully the answer is no. Did I do every step of cardio necessary? Did I do all the X factor elements and components that synergistically is going to bring the best that I can genetically be on stage? And if I can answer all those questions properly, then whatever happens after that is fine. I'm fine with that. I can accept it. But if I didn't perform at a level that I know that I'm capable of, if I didn't suffer to that level that I know that I'm capable of, then it's on me. And then you have regret. And there's nothing worse than regret. And I think you can carry that over to just the general population. If somebody has a very hard, fast, strategic physique goal for themselves, whether competing or not, it all comes down to a Herculean level of discipline that most people in the culture never, ever get close to. And, when I tell clients and when I tell people on YouTube, listen, you have to make yourself part of that 5%. And getting into that 5% is going to be extremely difficult. You have to sacrifice to a level that most people will never understand and have never been there. And then when you go to a competitive stage, then you're down within like 2% or 1% of the population. So, you have to sort out that level of discipline and understand that you're ready to embark on something that you've never embarked on before. And the level of difficulty is going to be greater than anything you've ever done before. But the good news is once you go through that process, if you suffer enough and you do everything right, when you get to the end goal, there's zero regret. No matter how hard you struggled, no matter how hard you sacrificed. And when you reach that pinnacle and you get to that point, the suffering just becomes the stories that you tell and you wear it like a badge of honor. But most people don't have the discipline to push themselves to that level. And if somebody could do it just one time or even get close and understand what that headspace is like, then they're mentally prepared to do it again. And now they're that much closer to achieving that level that they've wanted to have for, in some cases, years or decades. So, that's why competition, we're at a point now where it's not like it was back in the 90s where you're either a bodybuilder or you weren't. Now with classic physique and, men's physique and women's bikini, and now this fit model division. Literally anybody can compete now. You still have to have an unbelievable level of discipline to be able to be competitive. But now anybody can embark on that. And that's why, you're seeing the master's level exploding, because people are they've built their business, they've raised their kids, and now they want to do something that is so monumental and seemingly so unreachable. But most people in their 40s or 50s typically have that level of discipline and work ethic because they've had the piss kicked out of them through life. And now they're ready. And that's why I think you're seeing such an explosion. I mean, it used to be there'd be, 4 or 5 guys in the 50 plus, and now there's 20. And the women's bikini, 40 plus. I train a lot of these women. I train a lot of women, 40 plus, 50 plus, 60 plus. And the lineup is huge. It even has to be broken up into different classes because there's so many competitors. But there's nothing like seeing a 47-year-old mother of 3 walk off that stage, even clutching a 3rd place medal. It changes them like nothing else I've ever seen before. And even if they just do it one time, they carry that with them. And it takes them to a place where they are now changed, and they'll never go back from that typically. And that's why I think it's a good thing to embark on. No matter who you are now, you can do that. And I think that's cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, as I've got older now through like different contest preps, I've probably done, I'd guess, about 11 shows at this point. I was in, a fair few. And I'm actually most proud of myself for the most recent one. It's actually the easiest prep I did. No extra steps, no extra cardio. Didn't go bananas with the hormones. I just was already in shape. I was like, well, just do it. As we're getting sort of tanned up and stuff, I walked by my stick, and everyone's like looking at me like, oh, what's he doing here? Like, whatever. I was competing against like open non-handicap guys. A load of guys that I was competing with in the classic physique category. They sort of looked at me and said, "Oh, I wish I could walk to the front of the queue, and if I had a stick. Oh, it's not fair." And I was like, "All right, okay." So I sort of smiled in my head. I thought in my head at that moment, I was like, "I'm going to beat half of you fuckers."
Yep.
And there's nothing you can do about it, and I did. And
That's
I'm
awesome.
like, so I also when I walked away, I came like I'd guess about 7th out of 14 or something like that. I don't know. But when I walked away, I was like, I sort of smiled, I felt proud of myself. I was like, I managed to beat people who should have beaten me because I worked harder. My skin was thinner than all of them.
Yeah. You outworked them.
Work.
That's my philosophy every time. I'm going to outwork everybody. And me as well. This 2025 prep after 4 years off was my easiest prep. And a lot of it had to do with my change in diet. I'll be honest. It was just it worked better for me. For me, it was more sustainable. And for me, it was an easier diet to make small changes to. I was able to just kind of turn a dial, and then the changes would happen almost immediate. And like you, I did very little cardio. I don't think I ever did more than 6 or 7 30-minute easy walks, and didn't even need to do that. I just did it mainly for the stress relief and just to be out there and get some blood flow going, just to make sure I had a little bit better level of conditioning. But I did the least amount of cardio I've ever done. And every manipulation I made to get the leanest I've ever been, hands down, I just did it all with diet. And that's really the biggest lever you can pull. And like we talked about last time, diet is the lever. And it could be different for everybody. You have to find out what works best for you, which is, again, was the topic of last time. I'm so tired with people pigeonholing everybody into some, classification of diet. I'm at the point now where I'm not on any diet that has a name attached to it. I'm on the diet that works best for me, for my performance, my output, my ability to sustain and retain lean muscle mass, my ability to get extremely lean. And that also makes me feel great, perform great, sleep great, and still have good blood work. And I found it, and it could be completely opposite of what somebody else does. And I'm certainly not going to criticize that individual for the changes that they make or the diet that they follow. So, I think once I got rid of some of the dogma and felt that level of freedom to just do what I'm going to do and be unapologetic about it, it was very liberating for me. And, I know carnivores, strict carnivores that do amazing, that look amazing, that perform outstandingly. And I support that 110%. You'll never hear me criticizing them. I say, hey, if you're happy and you truly feel like the protocol that you're utilizing is helping you reach your greatest potential and it's sustainable and you feel great, I wouldn't recommend changing a damn thing. However, if you come to me and say, these are the problems that I'm having, these are the shortcomings that I'm having with this, then I'm going to suggest a couple changes. And it's not the changes that I would suggest in order to make me be part of a club. It's going to be the changes that I would suggest to the client that I truly feel is going to be the most helpful for that unique individual. And I think too many people in our space have gotten tied down to an ideology, and it's tied directly to their level of income. And they don't feel like they can pivot from that or make adjustments or changes, even if based on current outcomes and changes in the literature. And I think that's a sad place to be. So that's why I commended you so much when, and we kind of reconnected on the post that you did in the Facebook group, which when I saw your physique, I was like, holy shit, dude looks freaking amazing. And then I saw negative comments and I just went ballistic. And that's when I'm like, not here. This dude is amazing. He's unapologetic. He does what's best for him and has faced obstacles that many people would never understand. And when we talked about collaborating and just being honest and open and sharing experiences with no judgment whatsoever, and then kind of unifying people under the space, regardless of what they're doing, to me, that was extremely attractive because it's something that's still not really happening. There's always this division, and there doesn't have to be. It's ridiculous that grown adults would go on the internet and yell at somebody for the choices that they're making with, about what food they put in their mouth. Just seems like people are acting like petulant toddlers, and it's just absurd to me. So that's why this is so refreshing.
Cheers, yeah. I mean, thanks for the kind words. I mean, it's impressive to speak to someone like yourself. I mean, you're not double my age, but you're at least 10 years older than me.
Thanks for bringing that up, by the way.
You're still sort of maintaining a very, very substantially high level of musculature, which is unheard of, really. I mean, you said just now, just over the 2025 period, you're gaining back a lot of what you might have lost in the past, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And now you've obviously got an action plan going forward. So, I like anyone that's passionate that just wants to get shit done and work hard. There's something to be said for hard work, and like you kind of mentioned that there's always a good, better, and best case scenario. Mm-hmm. There's also that human element of I fucking hate rice. I don't. The gym bro diet's not going to work well for me by default.
Yeah,
but I can eat a load of butter. So
right, and that works well for you, and I think that's awesome. And for me, still, I mean, the reason that I went into what I've always referred to as a hybrid carnivore model, there are still tons of vegetables that I cannot eat, which was one of the reasons I went that direction. I do not do well at all on any cruciferous vegetables. I don't do well at all on just about anything green. There's only certain fruits that I can consume that agree with me, but I've never had an issue with white rice or potato. I've never had an issue with it. I can do sourdough bread. I can't do conventional bread. It doesn't agree with me, but sourdough, I do amazing on that. And, raw honey, I do fine with that. Cream of rice, man, I'm the cream of rice king. I've got about 37 different recipes for that. And I also noticed that when I went into a carb cycling model, that it just made everything kind of turn on, and being able to adjust the intake relative to the amount of output, everything just responded so easily for me. And for me, it was like you, but for me, it was the easiest prep I ever did, because when I was 8 weeks out on more of a carnivore model, it was true suffering. I was constantly starving, no matter how much meat, eggs, fish, butter, whatever I ate. And even though I would do some carbs pre and post workout, that didn't solve the problem. Whereas this time, clearly you're going to be hungry just because of the energy deficit there towards the end. But having that little bit of carbohydrate to replenish glycogen every 3 to 4 hours, and it kept everything steady and stable, and my performance never really dropped at all. There was no significant reduction in the amount of weight that I was pushing and pulling, even 2 weeks out. And I had never done that before. And I was like, oh, well, this is working great for me. And once again, the final point, I have never been leaner. You know, when some people in the hardcore carnivore space, when I tell them that, you know, I was eating carbs at every single meal and getting absolutely shredded, it was the easiest it's ever been for me. To them, it seems counterintuitive, but it's not really the way the body works. You know, as long as you don't have two competing energy sources conflicting with one another, you know, for somebody who's carb cycling or utilizing carbohydrate as their dominant energy source, provided you lower the fat, you can get freaking shredded and do great. If you're doing more of a carnivore ketogenic approach, using fat as your dominant energy source, and you reduce the carbohydrate, that can work very, very well. But it's like I said the last time, we could end the obesity crisis tomorrow, in my opinion, if we just had everybody out there just start eating single ingredient, clean, whole foods. You know, it's like Asian cultures, you know, Pacific Island cultures eat a ton of rice with their meat. And they're some of the most long-lived cultures in human history. And their rate of disease is negligible at best. You know, South American cultures subsist on a lot of corn and fruit, and they do fine because their fat is lower. You know, whereas like some cold climate cultures eat a lot of fat because that's what is at their disposal geographically. And by default, their carbohydrate intake is very, very low. So they do great on that. So it's when I had that little aha moment that I realized that, hey, you know, this is working great for me. I'm going to continue to do it. And who knows, down the road, if I'm not competing anymore, I may reduce some of the carb intake some and just gauge it more on how I feel and whatever my energy demands are. But for now, it's working fantastic. And I feel pretty happy at 57 years old to have the physique that I have and the level of performance I have, because at the end of the day, when my competition years are behind me, I'm still going to be that insane grandfather that's swinging on the monkey bars and going face first down the slide into the mud with his grandkids. And I can do that. And I'm proud of that. And that's the legacy that I want to give. And to have a level of resilience, to be a protector of my family, and to be able to handle any crisis that might cross my path. And sometimes people are like, what crisis? You know, well, we had a little hurricane here just a couple of years ago that absolutely wiped out everything an hour west of me. And there was tons and tons of situations. And I talked to these people face to face where they were faced with massive crisis that those who did not have the physical capacity to handle these natural disaster situations lost everything, including loved ones. And I'm not going to be that guy, you know, so it's on me as a husband and a father and a grandfather to be the most resilient, highest performing human being that I could possibly be. So, you know, it goes way past bodybuilding for sure for me.
I agree. Yeah, you certainly deploy a lot of stoicism as you go through a contest prep. And it sounds like, oh, you're just dieting and going on stage. It's like, you ever try like doing something which you don't perhaps want to do against your natural inhibitions for, like you said, 7 months straight? I mean, for the past 2 years, I've been in a contest prep, probably, well, all of 2 years, but like in terms of like the dieting, like in a depletion phase, load of it, nearly all the time. It seems like half the time, maybe. Contest preps for me nowadays only 8 to 10 weeks max. I stay very lean year round. So it's not tricky to get in shape. But like I was saying about the stoicism, I mean, I think the measurement of success nowadays isn't by what we have. It seems like it's by what we don't need.
Right.
Like, you know, like we shouldn't need to, oh, I can't do this, therefore I need someone to do this, or I can't afford this, therefore someone has to buy this. And I think that's the point where we become dependent. And, if you're the head honcho in your household, yeah, it's going to be better to be more stoic and more blue collar than not. I mean, there's no downside to it.
Yeah,
So yeah,
100%.
I completely get behind that.
Yeah, I'm
we've got
very,
some questions as well.
Yeah, I'm very traditional. I mean, I believe I need to be the most capable human I can be for my family. I'm very minimalist. I don't need a lot of stuff and things. I want to provide that for my family, not be a lazy, soft bastard that can't do 10 push-ups or climb a chain link fence. For me, it's about being a provider, being an example for my family, and taking care of my little bubble around me, and being there for anybody in any situation that might not be capable. And there's a level of pride that comes with that. And I always want to be capable. I mean, I see my own father at 80 years old, who now I take care of in my home, who didn't take care of himself for the greater majority of his adult life. And now I see him withering away, where I have people in my gym the same age as him, crushing workouts, doing conditioning work and doing things that most 35-year-olds can't do. And it's inspiring, not only when you do it for yourself and for your own family concerns, but when you see others, when you're helping others reach that level. There's nothing more inspiring than that. So I got it coming at me from both sides, keeping me highly motivated and disciplined to keep carrying that on, because I have an obligation to do that. And that keeps you rolling, man.
Yeah. I like the idea of like trying to pay things forward,
For sure.
and pay things back as well. Like, I mean, my brother does the same. If my brother's gone to the casino or something, and he's £100 or $100 up, sort of thing, he's like, well, I probably shouldn't have won that. I got very lucky. He'll donate $10 to charity or something, or if someone can't afford their shopping in front of him, he'll, here he goes. Yeah, I think there's something to be said for that, and we all live in our own little bubbles sometimes. I think sometimes we forget about the other stuff as well. But we've got 2 questions in the chat, if you don't mind.
Oh shit!
We could probably both answer them. So one of them is from one of my subscribers called Mike. The question is: do you recommend isometric holds or squeezes as a finishing set for a trained muscle group to induce eccentric failure?
Hey, he's your client.
Okay. It's one of my follower people. So I've actually been doing that a lot recently. I think because I've been posting up videos of me doing it. So people are sort of cottoned on to what's going on. Yeah, so what I'm finding is there's some muscle groups which I just struggle to hit hard enough in one set. And I can always do like slow control, the stuff I usually do. But there becomes a point where my limiting factor isn't the muscular failure side of it. It's the mechanical structure of my spine or my hips or something, which just limits what I can do. So one example might be a chest supported row. So I might do a straight set, I don't know, 5, 4, 5, 6, 7 reps. I don't know. It takes me about 2 minutes to do sometimes. Pretty heavy. Then I'll go pretty much to about concentric muscular failure. I'll give it 2-3 minutes break. I'll increase the weight a bit, maybe 20%. Then I'll do one single set that might be a 45-second hold, just squeezing it as hard as I can, basically. It achieves quite a bit for me because it means I can focus in the muscle group more. Because it's not moving, I'm thinking, okay, contract a muscle. So, what's going to contract easier? I mean, me flexing my arm like that, just still, or me just going like that. So that's my thought process. And so far, it's helped me develop some more muscle mass upper back recently, which I think is pretty cool. Other than that, I mean, it's all dependent on recovery, isn't it? And I mean, you only need to add in these intensifiers if something isn't developing, or you've got a safety reason. I mean, I'm quite a fan of just doing straightforward sets. If it's working, then say for example, your chest is underdeveloped, but your elbows get sore week after week after week. Okay, maybe rather than doing a heavy set of chest press, you might do a pec deck, take your elbows out of it, your shoulders out of it. That will pre-exhaust, that will fatigue the chest muscle. You're not using your elbows. Use a lighter weight by default because you're not strong for the second set, which might be a chest press, then just do that to failure. That's kind of my angle on it, but I really like it. And I think there's a lot of benefit to be had when you. I mean, I don't know if you remember Ben Pekulski years ago. He's doing all this training and stuff on YouTube, and he did this. I think it's a deadlift, and he put all the electrodes on his body, on his back. The EMG cords, and basically he just tried it, but squeezed it really hard at the top. Then looked at the amplification of the muscle activation, and it was like off the charts. They did the same thing again, but just with moving the weight. So there's obviously something to be said for like squeezing a muscle.
For sure.
Obviously you don't like squeeze it to like with no weight. Obviously you have to have a load, but there's something to be said for like squeezing the muscle under load, under control. Have you used these sort of isometrics before, anything like that at all?
Yeah, I completely agree. And this was part of my learning process way back in the 90s, back before there was internet. What you did, because at that point, my goal was to be a competent coach and a trainer, as well as build my physique. And for me, it was an experiment. I had no aspirations whatsoever during that era of standing on stage. I wanted to be the guy that got people on stage or helped them achieve a great level of almost unnatural muscularity. And so what you did back then is you went to seminars, you knocked on doors, you visited the big gyms where the top coaches and IFBB pros were training. And I did that. And one of the most fortunate experiences I had was befriending a very, very famous and popular legend coach of the time named John Perillo. And it was about a 6-hour drive from where I lived, and somebody that I knew locally connected me with him, and he was training top pros at the time. At that time, his big rising star was Dennis Newman. Most people won't know who that is, but he was a rising IFBB pro at the time. And I literally would drive up there for these weekend training camps that he would do. And he was very big on some of those holds on the final rep. And I remember specifically, especially with like pulling motions, like we would do like a reverse grip pull down. And then not only was an isometric hold, but it was a forced rep isometric hold where he would help get that nearly impossible rep down to the completely contracted position. And then his challenge, with him literally screaming in your face, was to hold it as long as you possibly could. And we did a ton of that. We would do it at the top of a leg extension. That was a big thing. And then he would give a forced heavy negative coming back down, another assisted concentric, and make you hold that for sometimes 30 seconds. And it was some of the most brutal, agonizing work I ever did. And conversely, the one session that I did that I had to pay a lot of money for with Mike Menser in Venice Beach that I did, I think it was 97. He said, pick the body part that you want to train. And I picked back because that's my favorite. And he had me do the same exact thing on a palms up reverse grip pull down. And, his colorful language, the guy was very, very eccentric. Basically he was, at that time I had an infant son, and he had asked me prior when we were sitting in the cafe if I had any children. So of course, in that moment when I'm holding that position and he told me to hold it for 20 seconds, he basically told me that he had a gun at my son's head and he was going to blow his brains out if I didn't hold that rep for 20 seconds. And then I had to get one more rep because he still had the gun in his hand. That was the kind of colorful shit we did in the 90s. I'm not going to say it was, I'm going to recommend it. We also would squat until we broke the blood vessels in the whites of our eyes, or we would go puke. And if you did that, then that earned you another set. So yeah, to this day, literally Tuesday when I was training back, me and my partner were doing some concentric or some isometric holds at the bottom of the movements on some pull downs. And I regularly do it on leg extensions, and I regularly do it on a pec deck. So 100%, I think it's a great intensifier. But to your point, and very well stated, very intelligently stated, I don't do it all the time. So I will often focus on doing that on one particular body part during that training week. And then, so you're looking at roughly, almost 30 days as you rotate through the body parts before you bring those intensifiers back again, because as everyone knows who follows me, I put a massive amount of value on recovery, because that's when the growth mechanism is set into motion. That's when supercompensation occurs. So yeah, I think it's a really cool thing to do. And I think it's something that everybody should play with a little bit.
Nice one. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people, they can move a weight, but until they've actually held a weight for as long as possible under load and tension, they don't realize how hard it is, because you're just thinking about your breathing. You're like, your grip, like your feet, everything it just hurts. But it's almost like you're trying to get to the point where it's flattened you, because it's like the ultimate test. So for me, I'm like looking at my stopwatch or something, thinking, well, I've got 45 seconds this time. I'm not using straps this time. All right, I left them at home, whatever. Let's try and get 45 again. But I know my forearm's going to adapt to it. It's going to be harder anyway, something like that. But yeah, I'm a big fan. But we'll go to the next. How are you doing for time, by the way, Rob? How much time
I got when I found out that we were doing this, I made sure I cleared my calendar as to not insult your valuable time. So I'm good.
I'm much obliged. Appreciate that. We'll get the questions done. That's the main thing. Gives people a good idea of what's going on. So done Mike's question. You might be more of a connoisseur than I am, but what's the best rice? I'm a white rice.
Yeah, I'm a jasmine rice guy, and it's always white rice. And I know there are people out there that say, well, that's not true or that's not accurate, but I still very much subscribe to the notion that leaving the husk on the rice, as in brown rice, can be hard on the gut. And I believe that to be very true. And I also know this from an anecdotal perspective. If I eat brown rice, I tend to get some bloating and some gut distress. But I could eat fistfuls of white rice and have zero ill effect whatsoever. And I've always been a big proponent of white rice. And I just like jasmine rice the best. Or sushi rice, because who doesn't love gorging themselves on good sushi? But that's my favorite for sure.
Fair. Yeah, we do the same thing you guys do in the US. There's some parallels between what people in the US do and people in the UK in terms of the bodybuilding scene do. We have a lot of cream of rice. We have a lot of jasmine rice. They seem to be the top two. Bodybuilders, to my knowledge, nowadays don't really do brown rice for the same reasons you mentioned. So it's
and I think the culture,
get food in quick,
I love the UK bodybuilding culture. I think it is. I love the fact that it just seems to be more beholden to the hardcore roots. I think a lot of the UK guys are still holding on to that blood and guts and just all out mentality. And I think it's one of the better scenes out there in the bodybuilding world. So it's definitely a bucket list thing for me to get over there and visit some of those gyms in the UK. And I've always wanted to just walk up and put my hand on the wall at the very minimum of the old Temple gym that Dorian trained in, me being a Dorian Yates super fan. I think I just wanted to notate that I still think you're lucky, because I think the UK bodybuilding culture is still holding on to that super hardcore badass ideology. And that's awesome. I think it's gotten a little soft over here.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say when I look at some people's training, we do have that Dorian Yates kind of like high intensity, how much can we fuck a muscle up kind of attitude. Our dieting culture is probably similar to yours, really. In terms of PEDs and supplements, we're very big on health checks now, things like that. So whereas 10 years ago, it's like no one really got a blood checked, really.
No.
But now it's like everyone, I know that there's a decent level bodybuilders doing blood tests every 2 to 3 months, pretty much.
I think that's smart for sure. And I'm the same way. And there's a couple of top coaches that have brought that into the forefront. Chris Tuttle is a huge proponent on health and a very long calculated health phase. Who's the coach? Stefan that trains Martin Fitzwater. He's big on really prioritizing health and moving his athletes through a long, prolonged health phase. And I hope that trend continues and more coaches and bodybuilders pay attention to that, because the longevity aspect is very important. So yeah, like you said, you can fuck a muscle up, but in terms of your internal organs and your overall health, that's something everybody needs to pay attention to at all times. I mean, I know for a fact that I'll be on TRT the rest of my life, and I'm totally fine with that. And if I had never stepped on a bodybuilding stage ever again, I would still be doing some, just minimum hormone replacement therapy, just because of the level with which I operate at life. And I'm fine with that. And but I am also very keenly aware on making sure that my health is on point and my blood work gets done. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I mean, I get loads of blood tests done anyway, but I buy my own private stuff and draw it myself because I'm nuts, and send it off in the post. But yeah, we got so much access to this stuff nowadays. I mean, I don't know what the average person spends on gear or whatever here in the US, but I mean, for me to get blood checked, I don't know, 4 times a year privately, it's $700 or $800 total.
Okay.
That gives me all the information that I need to sort of make informed decisions.
Yeah, and that's really changed too. Blood work has gotten very affordable. Back in the day, it used to be outrageous, and you had to have insurance and all this stuff. Now, I can get a basic blood panel for $150 US. It's not tough to do at all anymore, and it's a very smart thing to do. So for sure.
Nice one. Yeah, I'm glad we agree on that one. I don't think we could not agree on that one, really. But we've got 2 more questions, guys. If you do have any questions, anyone that's listening to this chat, chuck them in the live stream and put a Q before it so we can spot it. We got a question from Stacy, I believe. Might be a friend of yours, perhaps. What should our goals be regarding hydration during training days and non-training days? I do utilize LMNT. There's so much conflicting info out there. Thank you. Do I have a crack at this one?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big believer in hydration, and I'm a big believer in sodium and electrolyte intake. My minimum is now, I'm not a hyper hydration nut or anything, but my minimum is roughly a gallon a day. In the warmer months, I probably take in a little more because I like to do the one bit of cardio that I truly still enjoy is rucking. So if I'm out in the humid North Carolina July weather when it's 102 degrees, I have a bladder in my rucksack full of LMNT electrolytes, and I'm always getting that minimum gallon in as well. And I think that's very, very important. I mean, muscle requires hydration, not only for growth properties, but as well as just having a nice full muscle. And I think it's a very, very important thing to adhere to. You don't discount hydration. And it's hard in the winter months because you're just not as thirsty. So I still pour my gallon of water and make sure that before the day's over, I have that. And I'm also getting some hydration through coffee, which you do. And I'll also, have an intra-workout drink and sometimes a protein shake, which clearly is more hydration as well. So I'm easily slightly over a gallon a day, and I maintain that 12 months a year.
Nice one. Yeah, I mean, I find on carnivore, I don't drink nearly as much as what I used to drink years ago. I'd say in the off-season phase, somewhere between 2 and 3 liters a day. So less than a gallon, 3/4 of a gallon, roughly, something like that. Pre-contest, you're on stimulants, you're sweating a bit more. 4, maybe 5 liters, a bit more than a gallon, maybe.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, but when I did a mixed macronutrient diet, I was drinking around 9 liters per day.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So there's obviously some element of the carbohydrate intake and the hydration.
Yeah, I was going to bring that point up also. For me, utilizing carbohydrate in prep, clearly for every gram of glycogen, you're going to need about 2.3 grams of water to support that. So staying hydrated is also good for just the overall fullness and appearance of the muscle itself. So when I'm very well hydrated with my structured carbohydrate intake, just the overall aesthetic of that is so much better than if I were to limit my hydration. So it's motivating when you're well hydrated, because the appearance of your physique is so much fuller and rounder and tighter than if you're underhydrated. So that's a large motivating factor for me as well.
Yeah, I agree as well. And I mean, well, one thing to note as well is when we, obviously it depends what time of day you're training, but if you train first thing in the morning, a lot of carnivore guys out there will do fasted training. I'm not the biggest fan unless I know that a person can do it whilst being hydrated. So i.e. they've had something to drink an hour or two before. I'm not a fan of the idea of just waking up, having a high stim shot of pre-workout drink, going to the gym. It's not a good idea, guys. You're not going to hydrate your body properly. Your muscles not going to contract properly. Whatever reasons are there, you're not going to be able to cool off properly when you're training. So your pain perception, your fatigue perception will be altered. Hydration when we train starts ideally the day before. So I'm already thinking about, okay, am I training tomorrow? No. Okay. Well, I'm still going to drink enough tomorrow because I know the day after that I'm going to be in the gym hitting legs or something. So it's an ongoing process. I find the threshold of how much you need to drink based on your recovery, your training performance, and how your mouth feels. If you're dry, have a drink. I think one problem people have is they'll chug water. I mean, you might just be 100 milliliters under to be hydrated. But if you end up drinking half a liter, you're just diluting your system. So, like the added electrolytes have to be part of that. You can't hydrate through water alone. Like you said a minute ago, you said you'll go rucking, you'll bring a gallon out with you, or whatever. Then you'll put so much LMNT into it. Yeah, it makes sense.
Well, and for coffee drinkers, I'm a big coffee. I mean, if somebody said, "What is your vice?" My vice is coffee. I mean, that's my thing, and I think it's from 30 years of being at the gym at 4:30 in the morning, training clients early in the morning. But it's also important to note that coffee can be dehydrating, and it can stimulate a prolonged cortisol secretion. So I will begin every morning right out of bed. The first thing I do is about 12 ounces of water with salt. And if you do that first, it buffers the prolonged cortisol effect of having the caffeine and the stimulants from the coffee in your system. Not that cortisol secretion is a bad thing, like it's been demonized to be. It's a natural process, but excessive amounts, prolonged excessive amounts clearly can be bad. So for you coffee drinkers out there like me, start the morning with water and salt and then move along to your coffee. I think that's a good tip.
That's a good shout. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how my dad is still alive in this instance, but he pretty much only drinks coffee. I don't think other maybe like 15 years ago, I saw him have a beer. He just drinks like 5 coffees a day, milk and some sweeteners in it. And he'll have a bedtime coffee. Like it'll be like 9 o'clock. Like, I have my coffee now before I go to bed.
I can't even do that.
He's one of those people.
I thought it was tea over there. I didn't think you guys drank coffee.
Tea, yeah. I mean, I'd say it's about 50. I don't know statistically, but it's about 50-50. Yeah, most people will. I'd say the older generations will have tea, younger will have coffee, I think. But tea is a thing. Yeah, most people drink tea. Yeah.
Cool.
We got a question as well on a PED. Can people take IGF-1 LR3 on carnivore? Have you ever used that, Rob? And have you ever used that in the context of a carnivore diet? No.
Absolutely not. Okay. No, I'm not that deep where I think I need. I do not do insulin. I do not do IGF-1, anything like that. As we stated in the last one, I do a small amount of growth hormone, generally about 4 IUs. I don't think anybody, unless you might be trying to be Mr. Olympia, needs any more than 6. But I found for me 4 is fine, but I don't utilize any insulin with that. And really, insulin is going to be benefit to people who are on more of a carbohydrate based diet. I mean, that's why the guys do it, so they can pump in more carbohydrate and have the ability to more efficiently and effectively break that down. So, I've never played with any of the advanced protocols utilizing insulin or IGF-1.
Fair enough. Yeah. I've actually used this twice. Kind of for a different reason what most people probably imagine. So obviously there's a muscle building benefit to be had. Helps with nutrient partitioning, things like that. On carnivore, it's a bit more risky, as you mentioned, because anything related to the insulin peptide family or growth hormone family will have an impact on blood glucose levels.
Yep.
For me, I've used it successfully to reduce pain somewhat, in terms of like nerve pain. I've also used it for skin healing, funny enough. I think it can be useful, but it's not going to give you everything. It's not. It's like so far up that tree. The average person listening to this, like, they won't need to use it. I've experimented on it for the nerve healing benefits of it, because I have a nervous system disorder, effectively. So I have noticed some benefit, but obviously the limitations of all of these things are you can use it for a period of time, the body will desensitize to it, then you can't use it. So for me, it's like a as and when occasional kind of thing. I've done two bouts of it before, but like a 4 to 6 week stint of it. It'd be in a time when my recovery is lower, maybe my immune system's worse, maybe I've just had surgery or something, I don't know. But outside of that, I'd probably spend my money on different things before that, unless I was, in my case, experimental to see what benefit I'd get.
Right.
Your limitation is going to be the dose, of course, but that's a bit dichotomous in a way, because by using a lower dose, it will last longer and you're less likely to get side effects. So, yeah, be careful with your blood glucose if you're using something like that. Have a blood glucose meter if you're going to use anything, and whatever the amount say online, use the lower end of the bracket, would be my opinion. It's not medical advice, guys, but that's been my experience.
Yeah, this is just for informational purposes only. This is not for anybody's individual prescription. We forgot to disclaimer earlier. We don't want the YouTube overlords to get pissed at us.
Absolutely, yeah. We've got another question from Stacy. What are the positive negatives of utilizing raw milk in your diet, specifically if you're trying to add muscle and reduce fat? I've got a video on this one, but did you ever manage to get raw milk when you were following carnivore?
Yes. Fortunately, where I live, more in it's the western part of North Carolina. I literally live out in the sticks. There's a lot of places to source raw milk here, and they get past any bizarro illegal raw milk legislation by just printing "not for human consumption" on the label, or for farm use only, like you're just feeding your animals with it. I'm a big fan. I am. I've actually been attacked for promoting raw milk back in my carnivore days, because you get the anti-dairy police. But I think in terms of growth promoting, and it tastes amazing, I'm a big fan. I wouldn't do it in a cut, but I definitely did it in gain phases. And I currently use it now, and I'm a big fan.
Yeah, that's been largely my experience. We can get it over here if we go directly to where they produce it or sell it. So we couldn't buy it in our local 7-Eleven style shop or
No.
Tesco Express or whatever. But if we go to, I mean, there's a local farmer to me near where I used to live, maybe 5 miles away. I can go there on a Saturday morning, buy 10 litres of it. It's quite affordable. And I had the same experience as you. I used it more so because it makes your protein powders taste nicer when you mix it up. So in the off-season setting, it's a great addition. And people have said to me, "Oh, it's because it's got carbs in it. That's why you're having it." I'm like, well, no, it's just a way of making food taste nicer so I can get more food in.
It's the carbs, Jonathan. You're just trying to get more carbs, you traitor.
Yeah.
That's the bizarro mentality.
Everything.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
You're just doing it wrong. You're not carnivoring hard enough. You need to fast more. You need more fat, man. I'm like, how about you just shut the fuck up and let me do what works for me? Okay. Stop being the food police. No, nobody wants that.
Literally. Then I'll have a brick of butter each day in the off season sometimes. But you shouldn't have that much butter. It's like, What should I have then? I just eat beef, should I? For the rest of my life?
For the
That
rest
sounds
of your
fun.
life, only beef, salt, and water. Didn't you know this? Didn't you get the memo from the overlords? Didn't
Yeah.
they tell you that it has to be just ribeye, salt, and water for the rest of your life? Like that has ever been a thing throughout human history ever, which it hasn't. But okay.
The science doesn't even say that. The science says, 70% ruminant meat and 30% whatever is local to you, which might be anything from
Thank you. I
berries
have
to
been
tubers
saying
to
that for a decade, that I was a hyper carnivore. That means 70% of what you consume is coming from animal-based sources. And the remaining 30% is open to interpretation based on environment or anything else for that matter. It could be based on just freaking desire. So there would be days where I would be 98% meat and eggs and fish only, and there would be days that I was 70% meat, eggs, and fish. And that's fine, and I did very, very well with that. And again, the nothing but meat forever for the rest of your life thing is new. It's a new thing in the culture that was propagated by the hardcore militant meat cult carnivores. And if that works for you, great, keep doing it, never stop. And I will applaud that. But there's never been a tribe, culture, or society throughout human history that was zero carbs from the time they were born until the time they died. And I'm sorry, I didn't make that up. It's just an inconvenient truth, I guess, for some. But let me just qualify one more time before I get canceled again for the 19th time. If what you're doing is working for you and you are thriving on it, continue to do it. Don't let me change your mind. It's none of my fucking business. Okay. But if you come to me and say, hey, I've been doing X for this amount of time and I'm getting these severe diminishing returns, do you think, in your opinion, there could be a more optimized approach? Then we roll our sleeves up and we start implementing other things until we find the thing that makes the program more optimized for you and your goals. But apparently that level of optimization and that pivot is somehow, illegal, or you get your carnivore card revoked. And I've just never understood that mentality. It just never made any sense to me. The people that attack me and say, oh, you went back to using carbs, you're a traitor. I've got everything from you're a traitor to you're going to die soon. And I'm like, hey, I'm still kicking. If it's going to kill me, well, it's taken fucking forever because I'm 57 years old and I'm better than most. So, if it's going to shave a year off of my life by me getting the results that I want and enjoying my life, I'll take that. But I don't think that's the case at all.
Yeah, I mean, obviously both of us have worked with heaps and heaps and heaps of people in a carnivore and non-carnivore context. I can honestly say, hand on my heart, I don't know many more, maybe 5 people I've ever met or spoken to that follow a lion diet long term.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's talked about in all the forums like, oh, this is what you should do. It's like, if most people should do this, they would be doing it if they were that bad, health-wise, body composition, whatever it is. And you think, well, the people that I know with the most success on a carnivore diet are eating about 4 or 5 different animal foods each day.
Yeah.
What does that tell you? I mean,
yeah, I mean, it's also about sustainability as well. I mean, if somebody came to me and said, hey, listen, I'm going to put you on a remote island and I'm going to provide you with every luxury you could imagine. You're going to have a beautiful home, access to as much clean water as you like, every modern amenity. It's going to be paradise. And we're actually going to even pay you an exorbitant amount of money, but you have to only eat ribeye, salt, and water for the entire time that you live there. It probably wouldn't be 6 or 8 weeks before you served up my 37th ribeye, where as much as I love ribeyes, I would look at that damn thing and want to fucking vomit. I'm sorry. I mean, I like to have a little bit more variety in my life, not only with food, but in many things in my life. Yes, in some ways, I'm a creature of habit. I've been training primarily the same way, but I don't do the same workout every day for 32 years that I've been training. There is some variety in there. And sometimes when I think to myself, hey, I'm planning on doing a bent over barbell row today, and then I might say, immediately, you know what? I don't feel like doing that today. I'm going to go do this instead. I mean, you have to, I like a little variety. My life is lived an hour at a time working with clients on the floor. My schedule, it's like Groundhog Day for me. I do the same freaking thing from 5 a.m. until 5 p.m. Monday through Friday every single week. So if I choose to have a little bit variety in my food or a little bit of variety in what I like to do with my family on the weekends, I'm okay with that. And it's working out pretty well so far. So it's just very, very bizarre to me that this small collective of this small faction of people in the carnivore community just lambaste you and attack you if you stray off of anything but freaking red meat and water. It just makes no sense. And if that's your thing, great. But if that's not your thing, I mean, just once again, imagine being a grown adult yelling at somebody on the internet for how they choose to consume food. It just makes, if it's working for them. Now, clearly, if somebody's eating hyper palatable processed garbage from sun up to sundown and they're living off of fast food and just shit, then I might politely suggest that they look into making a small change with that, because anybody who is doing that clearly will be at a very poor level of health, either internally or physically or externally or whatever, or a combination of all. But if somebody is choosing to have a few pieces of food outside of the carnivore realm and they're thriving on that, it just seems absolutely, like toddler-like to scream at them that they need to change that. And you'll never convince me otherwise. And I think you're starting to see a shift in the culture that, hey, turns out I can live my own damn life and make a few choices outside of the carnivore realm and still thrive and enjoy myself. And how many of these lion diet people who are doing it only on social media because their finances are tied to that ideology are actually doing that 24/7, 365? I'd be very curious to see what some of these people do when nobody else is looking. I mean, even Bart. I mean, I love Bart K. He's probably not very happy with me right now because of my shift in diet. But if you end up watching this, let me go on record by saying, I think you're a fantastic human being. I consider you a friend. And there were times where you were nice to me when others weren't. And I still love your channel, love your show, and think you're awesome. And I always will. But even he has admitted multiple times that he has his moments where he might stray and do this, or have a beer and do this. Or I remember talking about potato chips one time. At least he's, honest and open enough to admit that he's not perfect either. So I get it. But so, leave these people alone. And, there was a guy that used to follow me and used to recommend me and used to always comment so nicely on some of my stuff. And the minute I did a video saying that I'd made a shift in my nutritional ideology, he absolutely attacked the living shit out of me and said some of the most petulant, childish, stupid ass things you could ever imagine. And even though I still remained calm, I answered back to him saying, well, here's why, and this is a little odd that you're doing this, and maybe we should act like adults here, and maybe we shouldn't be wagging our fingers at grown adults for how they choose to eat. He just kept slinging insults at me. I mean, this is the definition of truly brainwashed. I mean, it's a cult, and I know it's only a small segment of the population, but there is this cult segment of that community that needs to go away and go live on a fucking island together, because they're not doing anyone any good. So I don't know. Sorry, I'm getting off on a rant. But.
No, I understand where you're coming from. I mean, I have my own frustrations with some people in the carnivore community. I'm not going to mudslink because I don't need to prove myself or anything, but there are certain people who just make content because it appeals at the time. This is the 80-20 protocol. This is the sardine fast. This is the lion diet month. This is the, I don't know, eat every other day diet thing. And it's like, it's like there's these limited tools that these coaches are putting out, or influencers, educators. And I'm thinking, you're putting these people with like these minor issues with their diet. Like they're eating all the right foods, they're eating sensibly, they feel good. they've got a plateau, the fat loss journey, whatever it is, then you have to swing it over that way. Like, today I'm only going to eat butter for a week. It's like, how did you get from not quite reaching your goals and you plateaued for a bit to eating fucking butter for a week? It's like this idea of like a massive shift. But when we work through, you know this better than anyone, Rob. When we work through like a bodybuilding program ourselves with the clients, like you said at the start, you might increase your step count by 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
You might increase your stimulants by 10%. You might drop your fat by 20%. That's it. I mean, when I do my preps, they'll last, like I said, about 8 to 10 weeks, generally speaking, for most preps. I'll only make about 2 or 3 dietary changes, and my output might increase by about 10, maybe 20%.
Yep.
That's about it. But people, they worry, they panic. They get for 4 weeks straight without a drop in their scale, and they think it's all gone wrong. And I'm like, well, no, you don't know what's happened with that weight, What have you actually lost? Have you recompositioned a bit? Are you inflamed that month? Have you been on antibiotics? Has that upset your guts? Are you in a different household? Therefore, you got some different allergies pop up and your body's increase its surface area to improve its resilience against stress, or something you don't know. And that's one thing I do have a lot of trouble with, is coaches out there with these very like pigeonholed hacks. You're eating the wrong amount of salt, your hydration's wrong, you're not grounding long enough, you're not out in the sun long enough. And it's like, well, maybe it's a bit of all these things, but they sort of try to make it out as like the reason why you're so fucked is because of this one thing. I think a lot of people feel a bit gaslit for it. It's like you said earlier about like not carnivoring hard enough. It's like me, I'll make a carnivore-ish dessert and I have that every day in the off season. I like it. It helps me get food down. Is it the reason why my spine's fucked? No. Does it make a difference if I took it out of my diet? No. If anything, it's actually helping me get close to my goals, because like the average person to get to there, yeah, you can do it doing quite normal, sensible little things. But for me, it's like, well, for me to gain weight, muscular weight, I have to find a way of getting that much food in that small of a space so I can get more of it down. Right. And that is a limitation of a carnivore diet. I'm afraid to say that, there are limitations to be had from a carnivore diet. I don't think we'll ever see a top elite level strongman competitor that follows a carnivore diet.
Nope.
Not because mechanistically it won't work, but the reality is our biologies aren't designed to eat 5 kilos of ribeyes per day.
Nope.
It's just not going to work. But you can eat 2 kilos of ribeye plus 3 kilos of rice a bit easier, I imagine. So you can add honey to it. You can add, there's ways around it. But with a carnivore diet, you are limited in some senses. So I'm not big on a lot of these sort of videos. That's why people come to my channel. They want the straight talk. How would you get it done? And I'm honest, people. I say it takes a bit of time, but you have to be patient. And you don't have to switch things up all the time.
We're both unique because there's one word that is used more often than any other when people refer to what I do. And it's the thing that I'm the most proud of. And they always say, you're transparent, you're real. Even if it's to a fault, even if you don't like what I'm saying, I'm not going to lie to you. And if what I said 2 years ago, I appeared to have thought it was the gospel, and then 2 years later, I expressed to you something that I changed or pivoted from, and then I will calmly explain to you why. I mean, that's life. I mean, that's the definition of science. It's always evolving. It's always changing. Nothing is ever completely settled. I think at this point, after 30 years, I've settled onto a way of eating that I think will be the way that I eat from now on, because I'm the happiest I've ever been and I still feel great and I still perform well. But 2 years from now, I may make a shift in that because of something that was presented in not only the literature, but also anecdotally. And then if I do make that shift, guess who's going to be the first ones to hear about it? The people that are dumb enough to log on to my silly YouTube channel. So just be honest with people and be transparent with people. People putting up a front behind the camera and portraying themselves as somebody that they aren't truly are if you're sitting in a room with them having a drink. I mean, I don't rehearse things on YouTube. I rarely ever have notes. I have a thought in my head. I have some emotional context that I want to get out of my system. So I turn on the camera and I tell people who might also be interested in what I say. And if you like that, then great. You know, we can be friends. And if you don't like that, great. And guess what? We can probably still be friends. But the dogmatic approach and the cult-like approach to diet and training and whatever else the case may be, politics, I mean, there's no place for that for me. You know, we can still be friends. I have people on the political left and on the political right, and they are my friends. I have people who are religious and non-religious, and we are friends. I have people that eat high carb diets and people that eat lion diets, and we are friends. And unless somebody comes to me and says, hey, I noticed that you're doing this, and I'm thinking maybe a segment of that might benefit me. Can you tell me more? Absolutely. Here's what I think. And then they can either take that information and apply it, or they won't. And either way, it's still fine. I don't care. You know, you can't save the world. That's the one thing that I've found about being a coach and a trainer for 30 plus years. You can't save the world. You know, every once in a while, you're going to get that one bad heifer that jumps the fence and leaves the herd. Let that one go. Go focus on the herd and get them to safety. And that's the way I look at it now. So, you know, and kudos to you for being the same.
Yeah, I mean, I like that approach, and we've got a prime example here on the screen right now. So, this one of the ladies is what they've called Kimberly. She's got quite a complex sort of health history, somewhat of a similar boat to me. Like, has physical limitations, but doesn't necessarily look it. You know. Anyway, she's a lady of faith. I believe every Friday she has no meat, so it's part of her. It doesn't have meat, but she'll do her best in spite of that. She's still reaching her goals. Absolutely. Now, imagine if I was one of those coaches and say she had a health issue or something popped up. I said, well, you know what? This one day a week, that's what's running the bank for you. It's fucking up all your results and all your gains. And the reality is she's still getting results. It's still working. And my job as a coach is to work around that. It's not about having, like you said, the dogmatic approach. And I don't think I've actually ever had anyone follow the lion diet I've ever worked with, ever.
I've had a couple of people that hired me who were formerly on a lion diet and did not do well. Now, I'm not saying that's everybody. I'm just saying these two particular people did not do well long term, started getting some pretty severe diminishing returns, and we worked through the process together and we corrected those issues. But no, I'm not currently working with anybody that's just all red meat. No.
I tried the lion diet myself, like a lot of people, just out of curiosity. I did it for about 3, maybe 4 days. By day 2, I had heart palpitations, what would mimic, I guess, POTS, that sort of syndrome.
Yep.
So I felt like crap, like anxious, like really horrible. And I thought, oh, maybe it's an adaptation thing. I spoke to my friend, Harry Sapana, so we did some little reviews together, some research, did all the genetic tests and things. Because I like to find stuff out, you know, I don't like things not being known, you know. And it turns out I've got a calcium uptake gene thing. So people from a certain lineage, so people from pastoral genetic line, I guess, where they might have had high access to dairy in their previous ancestral life, sort of thing. Therefore, my dairy requirement is a lot higher than people's. And people say, oh, but it's not a required nutrient. Blah, 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 blah. Like, well, obviously it is, otherwise I wouldn't felt so crap. So there's a difference between required and, you know, surviving and thriving. It's that age-old analogy, isn't it? So I actually have a higher calcium intake requirement than most people. Because my heritage or line of people before me had so much of it, I've not had that epigenetic shift in time where I can say, I don't have it as much now because my dad or my mum had less access to it. There's not been that genetic switch.
Right.
So for me, yeah, I actually feel better with dairy. This other thing that I come to notice, when my blood level of ketones, for what it's worth, are higher, I feel worse.
Me too. Me too.
So
Yeah.
how does that? People always tout, ketogenic diet's great for how you feel. And I'll probably argue, yeah, like being a fat burner, you probably work better from a cognitive level if you've got depression, anxiety. There's science on that. But obviously there's a rate of diminishing returns. I believe it's the Inuit folk. They can't actually produce many ketones, or their blood ketone level always shows up low. Now, is that because the test they're doing is crap? Is that because they're utilizing the ketones? Or is that because their epigenetic shift has prevented them from having a stupidly high level of ketones because they bloody blubber all day?
Yeah, and that's something that I've discussed as well. When I say there's never been a tribe, culture, or society that has subsisted on only meat forever, they'll always say, "Oh, the Inuit, the Inuit." Well, number one, they have developed a genetic mutation over time where they can handle longer term dietary ketosis, and you also have to understand that oftentimes they're still getting the muscle glycogen that's naturally occurring in some of the raw meat that they eat as well. And they also consume animal dairy, which also contains a small level of carbohydrate. So my point I'm trying to make is even these cold weather cultures or societies, they're still not zero. There may be days where they are. There might be a stretch of time where they might be based on availability. But again, nobody has been zero carb from the time they were born till the time they died, unless they have chosen to do that as part of this new cultural trend within that small division of the carnivore community. And if they have, and if they are, and they're doing great, wonderful. But, it's not going to be for everybody. And I did it for 10 days. I did the lion diet for 10 days as an experiment. And by day 4, I started to feel terrible. And I ended it on day 10 because my sleep went to practically zero. I couldn't sleep, tossing and turning, heart palpitations. And again, just like you said, they're going to come out of the woodwork and say, adaptation, adaptation, you weren't adapted. Well, guess what? I didn't give 2 fucks about being adapted at that point because I didn't like it. Okay. So I abandoned it because I thought to myself, I'm not enjoying this at all. And what I was doing before was working just fine. So I don't care if somebody said, well, if you do that for, 8 weeks, you're going to be fully adapted. Well, dude, I did keto for years. And if there was anybody who was fat adapted, it was my ass. Yeah. And I started to get severe diminishing returns on a ketogenic diet and then had to create a hybrid ketogenic diet the same way that I created a hybrid carnivore diet. And now I've even abandoned that. And I found a very effective and sustainable methodology of cycling carbohydrate in and out based on output and foods that I tolerate well. And I'm not going to consume a food that makes me feel like dog shit just to say I'm consuming it. So even with carb cycling, as I told you on the outset of this, there are certain carbohydrates that make me feel sluggish or bloated or give me a poor gut reaction. So guess what? I don't eat those. But I do great on some other carbohydrates, and they have made my performance extremely well. They've made my recovery better. They've made it more sustainable for me. And I notice a bigger, fuller appearance and roundness in my muscles. And it made the severe elements of a prep diet, especially in the last 4 to 6 weeks, much easier for me to control and maintain. So why wouldn't I continue to do it if all of the results have been positive? Just so I can, reactivate my carnivore card? Seems kind of silly to me. So again, do what works best for you.
Yeah, I kind of speculate. It's a loose speculation, but I think some people that do a carnivore diet get benefit, then switch, go off, whatever, they add in some carbs, whatever it is. I think there's some sort of hormonal element to it, like dopamine suppression or something. I don't know the science around it exactly, so I couldn't really sort of dig into it. But I mean, some people, my brother, for example, he can't sleep on a ketogenic diet, but he can do a carb backloading approach and still sleep.
Mhm.
Maybe that suppresses cortisol a bit at night. Maybe his dopamine levels here, and it just doesn't want to shift in that carnivore ketogenic state. I don't know, but for me, it makes me feel manic if I add in. I think for me, 30 grams of carbs a day is about as much as I really tolerate comfortably, without having some sort of mental health or like inflammatory kind of thing that I notice, if that makes sense.
Right.
It's not to say like I can have, like over Christmas, I had probably 2 or 3 off-plan meals. Over each day, 150 grams of carbs. That was enough to have enough carbs in a meal to say, I've eaten a normal, traditional meal with my family.
Yeah.
And I'm quite happy with that. And I'll pay the price the next day. Then the day after that, get back on it. Then I'm good to go.
Yeah.
So it's
it's like sometimes you just have to enjoy your life as well. And it's a story I tell all the time. Even when I was more carnivore, on the carnivore end of things, there would be times where my wife would say, hey, it's Saturday night. We don't have kids. Let's make it a date night. So you know what would sound great with that freaking ribeye? A freaking sweet potato. And I would reply with, you know what? That does sound good.
With ketchup.
And we would, well, that's disgusting. But but if it works for you, please continue to do it.
I can't tolerate tomatoes, but yeah.
So, I would have the sweet potato with my steak, and I would wake up the next morning, and guess what? I was exactly the same weight I was the night before. I felt just as well as I felt the night before. I performed just as well. There was no ill effects whatsoever. But if somebody were to tell me, hey, you know what? I had a sweet potato last night with dinner and it just completely wrecked me, I'd say, well, then don't do that. It wasn't right for you. So if you're wanting to add some carbohydrate back in your diet, let's experiment with a couple other things. I've never had anyone who got ill effects from rice. Not yet. Not a single person. I've probably converted, and not by me saying to do it, but my onlions have come to me. I've had 12 now do carb cycling, and I did the numbers for them. And it's been weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks that these people have been doing it, from back when I was in contest prep all the way up to now. And not a single of the 12 have said they don't like it better. Not a single one. And all of them are getting good results. They're still dropping body fat. They're maintaining and building muscle. Their performance in many cases have improved. And I still have a shitload of clients who are on strict carnivore, and they're doing great. So again, the common theme here is, damn it, keep doing what works best for you. But if you start to feel like it's not optimized, or there are some diminishing returns, work with a competent coach. Doesn't have to be me, doesn't have to be you. It could be anybody that they trust, and go through the paces of determining if something slightly different or an altercation might work better for you. And then do that, So it is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I've crunched some numbers recently, so I'm actually making an ebook at the moment based out. It's kind of against my principles in a way, but it answers a lot of people's questions that I often have to answer. Basically, how do you find your carnivore diet macros? And it'll be applicable to keto and low carb as well. And that's probably a question you might have got as well in the past, like, how much protein should I have? How much fat? Basically, I'm writing this book. I'm about 40 pages in now. I anticipate it'll be about 100 pages. How to find your macros, what to look out for, how to suss it out, and exactly why no one can tell you.
Yeah,
so it's
sure.
You can't, like my people look at my diet and they'll be like, how does that work? I'm like, I don't know. I seem to do better doing an extremely high protein diet. It doesn't make sense. There's no literature to support what I do. But it keeps me satiated, it keeps me on track, keeps my inflammation down, helps me build muscle, and has helped me build muscle. So why would I change it? Then people say, oh, but the other one at the moment is there's a million and one examples. One I can think off the top of the hat is, but Dr. Sean O'Mara says, I say, but Dr. Sean O'Mara is not a nutritionist. He's not coached a lot of people like I have. And he's also not a shredded bodybuilder. He's been on the national stage. So how is he an appeal to authority? It doesn't make sense. It's not to say I know everything. I think what we all know as a general rule of thumb is that we didn't know fuck all about nutrition really, but I'm pretty sure I have a better idea than someone whose job is to whatever he does. So
for sure, yeah. I mean, working with working with real people in the trenches for as many years as you have, and it's been over 3 decades for me, to suggest that you're not going to learn some very valuable information in the trenches working with unique individuals over that time that would lend itself to making it possible for me to make some adjustments or to have some common baselines. I say the same thing. If somebody says that this template is all you need, don't adjust it at all, they're lying to you because they don't know. So when someone comes to me and hires me, we set a baseline of macros that I truly believe, based on their height, weight, output, performance, history, whatever, goals, I believe that this is going to get you somewhere on the target. And then we map that and we track it for a few weeks, and then we make a small adjustment. And then we track that for a few weeks and we make a small adjustment, and we keep getting closer to the target until we hit the bullseye. And then we're on the bullseye for a while until the goal might shift a little bit. Like, now it's time to get shredded, or now it's time to go back to building some more muscle. So then we're off the target a little bit again. So then we have to readjust and move closer to the target until we're there. And then we stay on target again. So you have to be willing to pivot and move and shift with these people, anyone, myself included, in order to dial it in properly, because everybody's going to be different. It doesn't matter. And not this, the same diet's not going to work for everybody. The same division of macros is not going to work for somebody. It's like back in the keto days when they were like, it has to be 70% fat, 70% fat, 70% fat. Well, I found for myself, 70% fat intake was an absolute freaking nightmare. It completely destroyed me. Not only how I felt, but it destroyed my physique, and it made me get fat, regardless of how I manipulated it. And a lot of people came to me.
Fat can't make you get fat if there's no insulin present.
Correct. Yeah. It's the phrase back in the day was, we got to eat fat to burn fat. Well, in many regards, that's kind of a silly statement, and
what you give it.
Exactly. And there's no magic macronutrient. And I would also argue, and somebody's going to DM me and call me a son of a bitch for saying this, and I'm a complete idiot, but it is a less expensive physiological process to convert fat to fat than it is to convert carbohydrate to fat. I'm sorry. Can you convert carbs to fat? Absolutely. You can wreck yourself with excess poor carbohydrate intake. You can compound that effect by having equal sources of fat and said shitty carbohydrates. You can make it even worse by those fats being trans fat, shitty fats, processed fat, industrial seed oils, and shitty carbohydrates. But properly structured, carbohydrate wants to be an energy source. It wants to refill muscle glycogen. It wants to be symbiotic with fluid, and it wants to produce high intensity muscular contractions. It does. Now, taken in excess, what isn't used is going to be converted to stored body fat, especially in the presence of high fat. But it is a more expensive physiological process for that conversion to occur. And somebody's going to disagree with that and tell me I'm wrong, whatever. But I've got enough, boots on the ground experience to suggest otherwise. And I'm not saying this to like be Mr. Carb guy. There are still people out there that just can't do it. And I tell them that. I'm like, you have spent too many years abusing yourself with a bunch of shitty carbs and shitty fat. You've wrecked your endocrine system. You've wrecked your ability to properly have functioning pancreas, and you've secreted way too much insulin for way too long. You're a damn train wreck. So we need to suppress that for a considerable amount of time before we can slowly reintroduce certain foods back into the protocol. So there's that. So again, the common theme is it's different for everybody.
Yeah, I think I'm going to touch on this point in a second, but I just want to put something on the screen. Just from one of my subscribers. So the feral grandma has kindly donated or gifted 5 carnivore muscle memberships to people on my channel. So thank you very much. That helps me
That's
out a lot,
awesome.
and it helps other people.
And
So they've
I
now got
have to
access
say,
my stuff.
the Feral Grandma might be the best name I've ever seen. That's phenomenal.
She's very cool. Yeah, really nice lady. One of the nicest people I've ever met. And sometimes I watch her live streams late at night, and I'm like, it's like having a family member who you're just observing and talking in the background. You know, like a wholesome person. You know. Yeah, appreciate that.
She's obviously a very generous, good human being. That's awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah, about that point. So, like, yeah, I mean, I get behind what you said completely about, you know, when you combine fat and carbohydrates together, you'll get fatter quicker. And we know this because if I eat a Mars bar versus I eat chicken and rice or chicken and butter, it's harder for me to get fat eating that. There's so many angles we can take on this. I mean, there's a hormonal aspect. There's the thyroid hormone output aspect. Inflammation aspect, there's a water weight gain from carbs aspect. All these things are hard to calculate, but the best way to sort of suss it out is to try it yourself. And I'd certainly agree. You know, you mix carbohydrates and fats together, you're doomed. So you like you said at the start, you pick one substrate that you're going to work with majority of the time, then titrate up or down.
I tell my clients, the first step is we need to choose your dominant energy component. And then we will manipulate the percentages in a way that's going to serve you. Because if you have 2 dominant competing energy sources present at the same time, it's a disaster. You know, and back to Bart. Bart does a phenomenal job of illustrating that. And I learned a lot from him in that regard. And so, yeah, those 2 together are a nightmare. That's why I would argue every top level competitive physique competitor bodybuilder, 99% have chosen their energy component. And in that realm, it's usually carbohydrate, but they have their fat lower. And then there are some in the carnivore community, the ketogenic community. There's a big segment of endurance athletes that are using ketogenic and carnivore diets to great advantage. They also have chosen their dominant energy component. And I would also argue it's probably easier for endurance athletes to utilize energy from fat than it is for a strength-based athlete. It just is.
It's a bigger storage pool. You think, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but like you got an endurance athlete. They're running around 5 hours straight. Okay, their glycogen loss is going to be huge. Now, me and you doing our 40-minute gym workouts, we're not burning through, 3,000 grams of carbs with maybe a few hundred grams. I don't know, something like that. So it's, I think there's more of a case for, it's a lot easier to argue for a keto or carnivore approach for a long distance athlete scientifically than for a bodybuilder
for sure,
short distance.
Yeah, like an endurance athlete that is well conditioned can go out on a 10-mile run and maintain zone 2 the entire time. So they can slowly utilize fat as their primary energy source. But if you get somebody like you or I that are doing a 40-minute super high intensity strength training session, I've just noticed myself personally and clients that, we seem to get a greater burn rate using carbohydrates and glycogen for that immediate high energy contraction fuel. Of course, you can train hard on a carnivore diet. We see it all the time. But I think in the broad strokes of the conversation, it would probably be better suited for your longer distance endurance athlete. And that's really what brought the ketogenic diet into the mainstream. You had some of these ultra endurance athletes, these ultra runners, back when that was just becoming a thing, that were touting the benefits of being able to go forever on very low carb and higher fat, because not only could they slowly utilize the fat as almost like a slow IV drip, but their bodies also held a wealth of usable energy in terms of just stored body fat that they could also utilize by keeping their output more of that lower intensity, longer duration, where it's going to be a little bit tougher to adapt to using that higher intensity, short duration kind of activity. So not that it can't be done, but in terms of just the broad strokes of it, I think it's going to be more beneficial for that long-term endurance athlete, like long distance endurance athlete. Which is like why I can go do a 2-hour ruck at zone 2, fasted, and do just fine. But I'm not going to get the same level of performance if I'm out doing sprint intervals, fasted. It's completely night and day for me and many others.
Yeah, I mean, I think I almost think the only reason sometimes why I can get away with my workouts, the intensity that I put into them, is because my protein intake is ridiculously high.
Yeah,
so maybe that's freeing up the muscle glycogen aspect.
For sure. Yeah, but gluconeogenesis is a thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I think that's a fantastic point, because people talk about, when people bring up the argument, well, you don't need 1 gram of exogenous carbohydrate to sustain life. That's true. It doesn't mean it's optimal. Clearly, because of gluconeogenesis, we know that the body still requires it and wants it. So it has a defense mechanism process called gluconeogenesis, glucose, neo meaning new glucose, to supply the body for the demands of the necessary amount of glucose that it needs. The way I look at it as a high intensity strength athlete, I look at gluconeogenesis more as a backup system. I would rather utilize carbohydrate up to a level before spillover to utilize high intensity muscular contractions, and spare protein to be able to utilize its full value in terms of muscle growth, repair, cell regeneration, and those things. So I like to find that balance between able to use the fuel source in the moment. And, when people say, well, carbs are protein sparing, technically they're right.
Anything that isn't protein, because it frees up.
It frees it up. Yeah. So for me, I would rather spare protein. That's why I always did pre and post workout carbs. I'd rather not activate gluconeogenesis in that moment, at least, and spare protein to do the job that I've intended it to do. And I'd rather use that quick burning high octane fuel from muscle glycogen to accomplish that particular goal. Not that you can't utilize amino acids via the gluconeogenesis pathway for that purpose. If that works, and if that backup system becomes your primary system, and it's advantageous for you to do that and be able to thrive on your diet, then thank God that that's there, Yeah. So, just kind of pick your path.
I think there's obviously pros and cons to both. I mean, if you want to get a load of fuel in quickly, you're going to do it quicker eating rice and honey than you are eating a ribeye. It makes sense, I think we can upregulate enzymes in our body biologically to have a greater level of gluconeogenesis. And obviously, it's going to be a genetic component as well. If my ancestors didn't eat any fruit, they probably didn't. I mean, I imagine I'm Scandinavian by heritage based on DNA ancestry things. Obviously, I'm blonde haired, big and tall. So so it's maybe my genetics are upregulated to deal with more protein than other people. Maybe that's how I'm getting away with it. I don't know. But the thing about the carnivore diet, it's gluconeogenesis is, well, it's actually demand and supply driven,
right?
But in a way that's rate limiting, because if I want to control my body composition and I want to get the exact amount of protein, well, the exact amount of muscle glycogen to perform in the gym, but I know my body will only create what it needs to at that point in time to perform the work.
Correct.
I'm going to do it better with protein, which is satiating, and it's going to glycate less than a readily accessible form of sugar. So if I eat a ribeye and that converts into sugar downstream eventually to whatever degree, then I eat a bag of Haribo or jelly sweets or something, or jelly beans. That jelly beans is going to glycate a lot quicker. The potential is obviously there because it's not self-regulating. We're putting in a fuel, and it might be the exact amount if we're lucky, but also might not. It also might be too little. So I think that's one argument I'd say for the gluconeogenesis kind of pathway. But like I said before, the limitation here is obviously the appetite side of it. I doubt someone like Nick Walker or Big Ramy is going to be 300 pounds on stage or whatever, or Samson Dowder if they're eating ribeyes.
No,
I doubt it.
No, I mean, that's why they do what they do. And,
Yeah.
you know, you would hear stories about some of the bodybuilders back in the 60s and 70s on a much more meat, dairy, and egg heavy diet with lower carbohydrate. But when the sport shifted and the prime focus shifted to the more mass, the better, then I think you saw the shift also with the dietary protocols as well. And again, for me, I mean, I completely agree with everything you just said. But for me, there's also the sustainability element of it. I find it to be more sustainable utilizing pre and post workout carbs and even carbs throughout the day at a certain level. And there's also the aesthetic benefit. I mean, you can't tell me, and my workout partners would agree, the way that I look with full glycogen stores during and post workout is ridiculous because of the full muscle bellies, and they're full of glycogen and water. And I like to be able to assess my physique a little bit more closely to what a more true representation of what it will be on stage. Yeah. And who doesn't like having this outrageous freaking pump and outrageous vascularity? And yeah, everybody will say, well, if you just do salt, you'll get the pump. Yeah, you get a great pump with just salt. I get a much better pump with salt and carbs. I do both. And I'll even throw in a little baking soda, which gives you skin tearing pumps. And I just like that. And I just personally, this may not be everybody, I can sustain intensity far longer with a carbohydrate driven energy source than I can on a non-carbohydrate driven energy source. I just can. And maybe that's another reason why all your top bodybuilders utilize a carbohydrate energy source and stay lower fat. So again, it's whatever works for you. And ultimately that's the only thing that matters. So if somebody's more on the carnivore side of things, we can work with that. If somebody's more on the carb cycling side of things, we can work with that. You know, everybody's welcome to play in our sandbox. We can all get along.
Yeah, I mean, how would you think we should tackle this then? Obviously, we both utilize different approaches, but we work with different people, following different approaches themselves. I mean, is there some sort of message we need to put out to the carnivore or, you know, low carb community out there? Because I'm getting somewhat frustrated, and I think I honestly do think a lot of the influencers out there are pushing it a bit, in terms of the dogmatic approach, the very anti sort of thing. I mean, you know, in the carnivore bodybuilding group that you operate, we see people on there with all sorts of different diets. I mean, I saw a guy the other day with, it looked like oats and strawberries in it, and he had like a protein shake next to it, something like that, I think. I've seen other people do their meat with like a few tablespoons of rice. You know, it sounds like it's a bit of a silly question because I don't really know if there's an answer, but how would you tackle that? Like trying to get people to be more cohesive and
I think in that regard,
you know?
that group was developed, if you read the description, to basically encompass everyone, but sort of starting with the hyper carnivore approach, because that's the way I've always been. So if somebody posted a picture of oats and strawberries with a whey shake or some eggs and said, this was my post-workout meal, then I would be okay with that. But if somebody was on there, like, you notice I don't go on to the carnivore bodybuilding group and tell everybody about the 350 grams of carbs I've been eating all day. That just would be disingenuous. It wouldn't be, it's not the right thing to do. I will still go in there and moderate and answer questions because I've been there. I know the carnivore space. I've competed and operated at a very high level on a hybrid carnivore diet or a hyper carnivore diet. But if that's not your thing, there are other groups out there. Or if you want to ask questions about adding a little more in or taking a little more away. But, you know, that's why that group can be frustrating. I think people are just a little bit confused. And that's why I created another group. And that group, the Hypertrophy Underground, is specifically for people who just want to train freaking hard, maximize their body composition almost to an extreme level. But in that particular group, we are not beholden to any diet that has a name. Carnivore, keto, bodybuilding, carb, freaking vegan, none of that. It's just ask questions about general diet. If you want to ask a carb cycling question, you're welcome. If you want to ask a question about manipulating a carnivore diet, you're welcome to do that. If you want to talk about anything in that regard, you can do that. But I think respectfully in the carnivore bodybuilding group, let's keep it relatable to that at a minimum, that 70-30 division, which is what it was always intended to be. And most people, do that. Now, every once in a while, you get people in that group that are on the other end that will chastise people because they had some cream of rice as their pre-workout, even though they had nothing but freaking meat and eggs the rest of the day. Well, that's allowed because that falls within that hyper-carnivore prescription. So
yeah,
it's just the way I look at that.
Yeah, I mean, I actually joined. I joined a group, Rob. I'll say who it is because I think what I'm about to say is quite fair. Do you know Drew Bay?
Yeah, Drew Bay. He's in the hypertrophy group.
Yeah. So I paid to join his group, and I had a question about my training. So I was like, I'm not a novice to training, but I'm relatively new-ish to high-intensity training. At least I had some questions about very specific things with my main sort of training program. And I joined the group, and I got booted within about 2 hours. I didn't say anything offensive or rude, nasty, derogatory, dogmatic, nothing. What I did was I wanted to post a question. It said, "Hi, my name is Jonathan. I have these conditions. This is what I'm looking to do by training. Anyone got any pointers? I follow a carnivore diet, and I have a YouTube channel where I talk about training and stuff." That's if they wanted to look at what I do in the gym or I don't know, whatever. Anyway, I couldn't even post the question in the group because I believe he censored the word carnivore.
Oh,
I got a message from him about, pretty much imminently. It's a respectful message. It says, "Hi there, Jonathan. Thanks for joining. I don't know if I don't want to promote that sort of diet, blah, blah, blah. You're welcome to have a refund." And I was like, this is a training group about high intensity training.
Exactly. That
and
is
I happened
bizarre.
to literally mention what diet I happen to follow. I'd never said to anyone, follow my diet or you're doing it wrong or anything. And so I'm not in the group anymore.
Well, that I will say it's a very dogmatic high intensity group. They're very purist, where I am not. I have wiggle room within the high intensity training approach. I'm more of a Dorian-esque type guy rather than a Menser Arthur Jones type guy. I think that's sad because I think if it's a group specifically about high intensity training, who gives two shits or otherwise how you're choosing to fuel that activity? I certainly wouldn't. I mean, it's ridiculous. And it's like I always say, everybody's welcome in my groups because we're all learning. And, I have a group, the Hypertrophy Underground group, a woman who is a relative beginner who's kind of new to all this was asking some very basic questions, and somebody commented some very derogatory stuff about her not being worthy to be in the group because this was a group about building muscle and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, how do you expect somebody to achieve a level of knowledge if they can't come into a group like this and learn from people who have been there? I mean, novices should be the most welcome. These are the people that we're trying to teach and to mold and to benefit so they don't go out there and do things incorrectly and hurt themselves or get dissatisfied with the whole entire experience. So I think that's wild. And, I have a group called Masters Bodybuilding that is typically for people who train and compete over 40. But that doesn't mean I don't want a 26-year-old in there who's trying to learn from people who have been doing this for 30 fucking years. That's only going to give him more information to build from. So I don't like this. inclusive cult kind of a thing. I mean, I just think it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, we had one of my ladies come up in the chat earlier, and she before how to put this. So I think she's following me, or I was following her on Instagram. I think she asked a question, or I saw her training. Something was going wrong, and I could see what was going wrong. And I said to her, in a polite way, oh, this is what I think you should be doing. Here's some tips, whatever. And I probably came across the wrong way because I'm autistic as fuck. But anyway, so I sort of said, well, I'll prove this. I'll coach you for a month, and I bet you'll get better results for it. I bet. I'm 99% sure. Anyway, worked well, brilliant, very happy, and now she's a client, sort of thing. Okay, great. The thing is, sometimes you have to give people grace in a sense. Sometimes I assume people don't know anything or know very little, then sort of give them a bit of advice here and there. And what I found was when I looked at her training footage, it's actually a lot better than most people I know have been training for 30 plus years. And that's because of her health issues. She is so on it, so adamant, so meticulous of her workouts. When people say, "Oh, you're a scientific trainer, you're meticulous, you're part of the science-based," this sort of memes nowadays. It's like, no, she's science-based, but she also works fucking hard. You watch her training footage, and she's after it. She'll do a review on Instagram. Hi guys, said in my workout, this went well, this didn't went well. I was a bit annoyed because I couldn't try as hard as I wanted this one. Mm-hmm. On this fucking arsehole in the gym took too long and it pissed me off, and all this sort of stuff. She doesn't swear, but but you get to infuse that passion into other people. You never know how it's going to impact their life. So now she's like looking at competing next year, and or doing like a transformation contest. And I'm like, imagine if she didn't do that next year. She's got two young children, 2 young girls. Maybe that would impact their life, their future. Maybe they're not motivated to stay in shape. So it's always a trickling on effect. So you have to always give people grace and always try to just assume, even if someone's an absolute noob, you don't know where they'll end up. I mean, Big Ramy, before he probably even picked up a weight, he looked like bigger than both of us put together. When he started training, he's like, "Oh, hello, this is me after training for 6 months." And you look at him, you're like, "You're bigger than like a pro." How did that? See, you don't know. You never know where people come from or where they end up. So,
absolutely. I've the same as you. I've given up, or I've given more information away for free than I've ever charged for over 30 years. Because that's what we do. We're coaches. We want to help people. We want to see them improve, and that's our job. If somebody messages me at 3 a.m. when I get up at 3:30, they're going to get a reply. And I don't mind that they messaged me at 3 a.m. I mean, that's our job, is to be available and to help. And there's a point where you might need to convince them that they need to sharpen their critical thinking skills a bit more. And they probably could have answered this themselves, which is also a way for increasing your level of intelligence. But yeah, man, I mean, I think that's awesome. And that's what we do all the time. I've done a lot of, scholarships over the years. And even for some that it was a budget issue. It was a financial issue, but their story resonated with me, and it was a phenomenal experience to work with them, even if there was no financial incentive whatsoever.
Yeah. I mean, I tend to do one person a month. I'll reach out to these people, they used to come across these people, they come up in your feed sometimes. And, the story has to resonate a little bit. It has to be someone where, I made a mistake recently. I started working with a young, I can't even give any information, but a young girl, basically. Didn't follow the plan, didn't check in, didn't bother, didn't say thank you, was rude, never acknowledged my feedback, didn't follow the protocol at all, like remotely. And I was like, oh, this is a waste of time. So I spent about 4 hours on this lady. But anyway, long story short, it's not, I mean, I know yourself, you're a bit like me, you sort of offer, reasonable rates. I mean, I've seen some of these programs out there, Rob, and I'm like, fuck me. how do you charge like $800 per month?
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's mental. That's more than some people make. That's more than what some people spend on their own family over a year.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, there's
I get
people
it.
out there charging 3 times what we do and
Mm.
and they've got not even 10% of the experience. But you have to you have to strike a balance in your pricing to make it reachable for the majority. Now, it's not going to be reachable for everyone. So that's why I have one that's $19 a month. It's not personalized, but you get to choose from seven different amazing workout programs. It's $19. And if you message me on the app, even if you're just on the $19 workout plan, I'll still answer you. I'm not going to be like, no,
reasonable.
You're not paying the premium. I will not, reach. I've had all kinds of people on the $19, basic coaching program that will ask me questions and they'll always get an answer. Now, if they make it abusive, I'll be like, hey, you might want to upgrade because clearly you need more than this. But for 99% of them, they're loving it. They're getting new workouts every week. It's on an app and they can reach out if they have an issue and I'm happy to answer back. So, make something for everyone out there and you'll be doing, a lot more for the greater good. There's a quote loosely translated from the Bible that says your care for others is your measure of greatness. And I believe that. Only caring for yourself, you're going to reap very little. You're going to be very lonely in the end. But if you're caring for others, then it comes back on you. And it's a lot more fulfilling way to live.
Okay. That's interesting. I've got one question for you, and I've got my own thoughts on it as well. And I was crunching the numbers for a lot of the athletes I've been coaching over the past 2 or 3 years. I was just looking through all their folders, all their files, putting all the numbers into all this faff, just to work out what the averages were. Like average rate of loss, average macros, things like that, like per kilo. And I found some very interesting things. I found that the difference between male and female fat proportion is none. It's the same.
Yeah.
So this idea of, I'm female, therefore I need to eat 400 grams of fat for hormones. It's sort of BS.
Yeah.
And obviously, women will have a different need to men. Depends on the output, their muscle mass, their size, stress levels, what they're doing in the day, their adherence, things like that. Yep. But yeah, I found it's all about the same. And for women, it's about 2.5 to 2.7 grams of protein per kilo body weight. The same for men. And for women, 2.2 grams of fat. Same for men. And that's where they tend to be weight maintenance. So this idea, like you said earlier, about 80-20 or 70-30, most people I know following a 70-30 diet get fat.
Yeah, all the time. Yeah, so, there was I remember visiting, it was a while back, but I've actually told this story at length on a YouTube video. And this kind of encapsulates a lot of the people, the experts in the space. A woman started a thread or a post in this Facebook group, which was run by one guy, the coach that ran and it had over 100,000 members in it. It was a keto group. And she said, I'm having a lot of trouble getting in my 75% fat by the end of the day. I'm struggling with this. I just can't make it work. Do you have any advice? This is exactly what he replied. And I'm not exaggerating. He said, well, yeah, there are times even when I struggle to get my 75% fat in. So oftentimes what I will do is right before I go to bed, I will just stand at the kitchen sink and I will unwrap a stick of butter and I will just eat the stick of butter. And if I'm still below, I'll have another one. And I almost fell out of my chair. This is the advice you're giving to this poor woman who's struggling to lose weight. You're telling her that she has to consume 75% of her calories from fat. And that if she doesn't reach that, she'll be somehow punished if she doesn't stand there and eat sticks of butter at the kitchen sink at midnight. It's a true story. I actually did a video called Don't Eat Butter at the Kitchen Sink. There are so many people out there propping themselves up as so-called nutrition experts with, pushing some named diet, giving some of the most ludicrous advice that you would ever see. And then one more real quick, and I don't mind mentioning her because I'm actually going to do a video on this.
Yeah.
There's a woman called the Primal Bod. She's very popular right now.
Yeah, it's a very slim lady.
Yeah, charges a ton of money for like this 3-month program. I've actually had 2 of her clients come switch to me and told me about it. Some of the things that she says is on point. I'll give that to her. Some of the things. But she literally did a video one time, and she said in the short, it was a reel or a short, she's like, ladies, that apple that you're eating, no good. It's just going to make you fat. In fact, if you eat half of an apple, that entire half of an apple is immediately, exact word, immediately going to convert to visceral fat on your body. That's what she said. No, it's not. If you eat half of an apple right now, it's not going to mystically immediately turn to visceral fat on your body. She is the most fear-mongering person, and there are a lot out there, that I've ever seen. She scares the living shit out of poor, impressionable women who are struggling to lose weight. She also had this long rant about not eating carrots because carrots have been genetically modified over time, and they're not even what real carrots used to be. And my thought was, if you have some poor woman out there struggling to lose weight, and she's exercising and she's trying to make intelligent choices and putting some single ingredient whole foods in their mouth, and she's shunning sugary drinks, she's shunning fast food, hyperpalatable foods, seed oils, and you're going to tell this poor struggling woman who's probably emotional wreck at this stage that if she has a half of an apple or a fucking carrot, somehow that's going to completely derail her? I mean, if I was this woman, I'd be like, well, I freaking give up then. I can't even have a half an apple or a fucking carrot. I mean, this is what she's telling these poor, impressionable women. I mean, that's the last thing that I would say, I mean, and there are tons of these grifters out there that do nothing but fear mongering and scare the living shit out of people over half of a damn apple when they need to be really focusing on what the big picture is. And they just won't do it. And then somebody, goes online scared to death and immediately throws their credit card down and sends this person freaking $3,500. I mean, it's just ridiculous the way these people prey on people, but that's the culture we're in now. But, it will drive you insane.
I'm going to be thinking about that one all night tonight, Rob. Bloody hell.
Oh, if you go to her YouTube, you'll find it. It's there. It doesn't take long to find it. But I'm actually going to do a video on it. I've screenshotted the video, and we need to expose some of these poor people, or expose some of these people, because there are poor people out there who are just at their wits' end, confused. They don't understand. They have information overload. And you get somebody like her with her size 1 physique and tells you, ladies, if you eat half of an apple or a damn carrot, it's all going to convert to fat. You're basically going to die a fat slob. I mean, come on.
I have this more commonly with women than men, just because of the culture. Women read magazines. Oh, eat this food each day and you'll do this, or don't eat this one thing and this will do that. It's the headliner stuff. The articles, magazines. And I had one lady actually. She's got a very serious competitive physique. Is in you look to her, very muscular, very lean, defined. You'd imagine her being a pro. Anyway, so she asked me, I think it was about 2 weeks ago. She said, "Oh, I've gained." It was like 3 pounds on the scale, and she kept pretty good that week. She's probably about 20 weeks out from her show, roughly. And that was probably the first week of her prep, and she had a drink on the weekend and a meal out with a small dessert. And she said exactly what she had. So I always encourage an open flow of dialogue. I say, "How much do you have? What do you have roughly?" At least then I know. Oh, you ate a 2-kilo pizza versus you ate a packet of French fries. I got a picture in my head. Okay, that will mean that weight shift on a scale, whatever. Or that'll explain the bloating or whatever it is. So in reality, she probably only ate about 200 grams more food in terms of macros over the given week than what was on our plan. she gained about 3-4 pounds. I said to her, how are you going to gain 3 to 4 pounds of body fat if you've only consumed 200 grams of extra food? And it twitched straight away. But the thing is, she's been as knowledgeable as she is, good at training, thoughtful, intelligent she is. She still has been indoctrinated by those sort of primal body people that you eat this 15 grams of sugar from half an apple and it's going to turn into fat. What if the person's glycogen depleted? What if they've had an extra 15 grams of sugar worth of activity each day? How would you account for that? And I think that whole attitude is, yeah, make that video, Rob, and I'll like it and I'll share it.
Yeah, I'm going to have some fun with that. I'm actually pulling up a few other examples from a few other fear-mongering grifters that are out there to include them in the party.
What else is there that you know?
Off the top of my head, I stumble onto them all the time, and I just roll my eyes, laugh, and move on, because if you give them too much serious consideration, you'll want to blow your head off. I don't know. I've saved a couple, so I'll have to dig those up and I'll send them to you. But she's the one that's just driving me nuts. And I actually mentioned that in the group a couple of times and gave some examples, and it's just unreal. And she charges an outrageous amount of money. And I was told, I don't have proof of this, but I was told by a former client that all you get is basically a PDF, a workout program that is mainly body weight, and you get to speak with her on Zoom like once a week for 3 months, and it's like pushing $4,000 or something like that. Now, I don't know if that's true. I didn't see it myself, but that's just what
Paul
the hearsay
Saladino
is.
money, Rob.
Paul Saladino money, yeah, or Greg Doucette.
Yeah.
Greg Doucette is buying freaking Ferraris now. Charges, what is it, $30,000 for a year of training, $35,000, something like that, or no, for 6 months. I don't know. I'd have to look it up. If you go to Greg Doucette's website and click on his coaching link, look what his fees are. It will blow your mind.
Should I have a look now?
Go ahead. Yeah, it's insanity. I forget what it is. I just remember it being like jaw dropping. And I saw a video of him. It was probably a year ago, where he did a video of him buying his new, is either a Ferrari or a Lamborghini with his wife. Yeah. I don't care how damn good you are. It's not worth that amount of money.
Wow. 15. Oh my God.
Actually, I think his prices have come down then. It used to be, there was one that was $30,000. I don't know what all you supposedly got with that. Look, a 20-minute phone call for $500. Yeah.
See, I clicked on that, Rob, and I thought, oh, I'm going to click on 40. It will say like less.
$750 for a 40-minute call.
That's literally like 10 times more than we charge, isn't it? Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm actually doing a sale right now where I do an hour for $79.
Let's bring you up. Yeah, I like, you've got quite transparent pricing, I think, from what I remember.
You have to use a coupon code right now for that 79. It's called, you have to enter in train 26, or no, talk 26. I'm sorry, I'm losing it. Talk 26, and you get the $150 hour consult for $79. Just because it's that time of year and people are wanting information, they're wanting to come up with a blueprint. So, wanted to help people out and make it more affordable.
Yeah, I'll chuck this in the chat just so people can
appreciate that.
It wasn't sharing screen. Yeah.
Oh,
I thought it was sharing the screen, but I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
Can you see it now?
Yeah, that consult right there, it's normally $150, but if you use the code talk 26, it's automatically changes it to $79.
That's good value. Yeah, a lot of the carnival folks out there are like $150 an hour, like at best, like if you're lucky, sort of thing.
And I can't remember a time where I stuck to 60 minutes. You know how that gets. You get into the groove, and all of a sudden it's an hour and 15 minutes later, hour and 20 minutes later, but it's fun. And I've made a lot of great friends on these consults. I do them all the time. And it's ask whatever you want. Tell me what you're looking to do. Tell me what you're currently doing. Let's map out a blueprint. Let's make this simple. Let's be very, very upfront and frank and transparent. And let's try this. And I always tell them when we're done, listen, I don't have to be on the clock. Once we're done with that consult, you send me an email or reach out to me on a DM. And if you have a question after the fact, I'm always going to answer it. That's what we should do. I'm just not that guy, so I'm always hoping to help.
I'm terrible, Rob. Once I'm done, I'm done. That's just me though. My time is so limited. It's that's why I'll say, listen, if the context is usually this, if once we log off after we've spent an hour in the trenches together, I'll always say, hey, once we log off, if all of a sudden you're like, shit, I forgot to ask this, or shit, what about this in regard to what we talked about? Email me. I'll answer that question. I mean, I don't want to leave them hanging just because time ran away from us. And then down the road, a lot of times they'll book another one and then we'll expand on what we talked about. And then down the road, they'll book another one and we'll take it to another level. I literally have had 2 or 3 people that bought 4 or 5 of them at one time. And I told them, just book it whenever you're ready to do the next one, and then they have it. So it kind of commits them to the process by making the investment. But no, I love doing it. That's very generous of you. That's generous because your prices are reasonable. And you say, look, you run out of time. With me, I don't have the time spare because my phone goes off 1 million times a day. My screen, like you imagine, my screen time is ridiculous. I don't want more. I limit my roster deliberately.
I'm not going to say it's not difficult, but I do map out a couple of hours a day where I sit down, answer questions, respond to emails. And there have even been times where I'll get one of those emails and I'll say, hey, listen, I can't reply right now. I'm completely slammed, but I just wanted to give you the attention that you deserve and let you know I'll try to get back with you within the next 24 hours. And then I'll go to my phone and put down, respond to so-and-so. And then I'll set a reminder and get back to them because, I just want to make sure that we're there. I mean, obviously if somebody abuses it, I'll say, clearly you need another hour, but if it's just 2 or 3 follow-up questions, I'm happy to help.
Yeah. I mean, I try to provide people with different options for coaching. So with some clients, I do it like a one-off coaching, a check-in. So I have someone, they just want a bit of monthly or bi-monthly guidance, like, oh, this has happened, this is my training, what do you think? How's my logbook looking? How's my technique looking? And I'll just go through all their stuff. And I think the value is tremendous. It's like, I think it works out like $40. I'll go through their training footage, their notes, their intake, the check-in, the progress photos. I'll give them a proper response, like a, proper written. There's no sort of like, oh, yeah, increase fat 10 grams, cut out this, add supplement, have a good day. There's none of that. No, it's always written out properly.
I'll tell them when they book the consult, as they're booking the consult, that there's a place where they can include to add anything they want to make sure that I'm aware of. They can attach files if they want to. They can send me blood work if they want to, whatever. So I have a little bit more ammunition. And then usually the night before the consult, I'll kind of glance over what they previously sent and have it in my head so I have a more clear understanding of who that person is, which makes the whole experience a little better. So
yeah, I always enjoy my consults. Like you, I just hope they book in for the right amount of time. If it's hi Jonathan, I want to start a contest in 2 months, I booked in for half an hour. Not gonna cut it. Not gonna cut it. I'm sorry. I usually message them before and say, we can do half an hour, but to be honest, I might get 5 questions answered, so you might miss out basically.
I always do an hour. I found any less than that, it's wasting both of our time. But I can get through a lot in an hour, and then I'll tell them, hey, listen, like, especially if we're setting some baseline macros, I'll tell them, listen, I'm being very clear with you. I'm not giving you an exact formula because that doesn't exist. We're talking to each other for the first time over Zoom. But based on the information that you've given me, provided that it's very accurate and for the most part truthful, we can, like I said before, we can get somewhere on the target. And then I want you to apply this to your very best ability. And then perhaps in 4 to 6 weeks, book another one. And we'll talk about the results, challenges, how it played out for you. And then we can, quickly touch on some adjustments that we might make based on what you've accomplished over that 4 to 6 weeks. Because that's what it takes. You're not going to just give somebody some plan, they apply it, and they miraculously turn into, Brad Pitt and Fight Club. Yeah.
It's an ongoing process, and I think sometimes for a lot of people I work with, it's steering them away from like that primal bod, only half an apple kind of thing. Like I sort of say to people, look, your goal is to gain this much muscle mass. Realistically, best case scenario, you might gain about this much.
Yeah.
Then they might not speak to me again. But at least I told them the truth.
Yeah, it's like when a woman says, I don't want to put on too much muscle. I don't want to get bulky. I'm like, number one, you won't. Number two, if you're an unenhanced average female lifting really hard and doing everything right with your nutrition, that woman would be blessed to put on 4 to 7 pounds in a year.
Yeah.
So make sure you get every ounce that you possibly can, because it's not what you think it's going to be. I mean, that's just, being a female. And if they do everything right, it might be 5 to 7 pounds. If just genetically that's not them, it may be 3 or 4 pounds. But, if you're holding 4 pounds of lean muscle in your hands, and then you think about distributing that equally over your female body, and then subsequently removing another 10, 15 pounds or whatever of body fat, that swap is going to look amazing. You're going to be very blessed and very, feel very fortunate with that result. And even guys, I mean, when an IFBB pro, reaches their pro status, and they're like, well, the judges told me I need to put on a little bit more mass. And then you find out the following year, they put on 3 pounds or 5 pounds, and they're thrilled with that. Because to put on much more for most of these people, I mean, they're already close to their damn limit. That's usually what it ends up being, somewhere in that 3 to 5 to 7 pounds. And that's only for the absolute genetically super blessed, or they might have to do so much damn gear that it ends up making them look like shit in the process. And, the extra weight wasn't worth it.
That sounds entirely accurate. So if people are listening to this in the chat and they're thinking, I weigh this much and I want to gain this much, just bear in mind we're talking like maybe half a pound a month at best. And that's doing your best. Like, you're not missing meals. You're not sort of sat there at night on TikTok at 4 a.m. You're doing everything right. And obviously, like you said, like eating half an apple or going to bed an hour later, it's not going to break the bank. But the more times you reinforce a bad habit, the more likely it is to keep recurring. Yep. So, my goal this off season is to gain 3 kilos of muscle. So between, last stage presence and next one, 3 kilos of muscle. Where am I going to gain that? Well, probably the same places I always tend to gain it, which is going to be my strong points. But that's why we manipulate our training, reducing volume. We do all these different things as bodybuilders to sort of eke out the most out of what we need to get the best result on stage. And that's just been my experience. But I think we'll do one more. Yeah, we've got one more question, which is related to sleep, actually.
Yeah, because it's time for me to eat. I'm one of those weird bodybuilders that eats every 3 hours. Yeah, I'm wasting away. I'm going to go have half an apple as soon as we're done.
Yeah, I do. I do 3 to 4 meals a day. Usually 4.
I do 4 to 5. When I'm in prep, it's always 5.
I think with prep, you have that food focus a lot more. So it's almost you'd almost always rather have a bit something to look forward to in a way. But my satiety doesn't really go. I don't really get poor satiety in prep. So protein's so high, but I do get all the low energy symptoms, But
yeah, it's not really until about 4 weeks out that I'm in that constant hunger mode and that I'm just food obsessed. Maybe 3 to 4 weeks out is when it starts to get shitty, because it's such a slow titration downward if properly done that I don't really reach it until those last few weeks.
For me, it's when my face starts to get sucked in the last 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, for sure.
That's when I start to I walk downstairs, then walk upstairs, and forget why I've walked in either direction.
Oh yeah, I do that. Oh, for sure.
Absolutely.
Do that. Once I got death face and I look like Skeletor, everything goes with it.
It's a lot, yeah. Oh, geez. I'm glad it's not just me. You got a question from Josephine. So, what's your thoughts on sleep? I think it's essential. Do we really need 8 hours of sleep? I don't think I've ever spent that long, other than when I'm really sick, basically. What's your sort of thoughts towards sleep in general?
I'm such a big proponent of sleep. Huge. I truly believe that sleep is when the magic happens. Sleep is when we restore everything. That's when we build muscle. That's when we burn fat. I mean, and there's even some pretty compelling research just based on our genetic makeup as human beings that period of time between roughly 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. is when the body is going to regenerate in terms of muscle gain, regeneration of cells and tissue, full recovery taking place. And then somewhere around that 3 a.m. realm is when the brain takes over, because it's such a big energy suck anyway, that's when it's going to take over and replenish brain tissue and neurotransmitter function and all these things. And it really needs a lot of work there. And that's why, just generally, as most people, when you'll start to get that slow rise of cortisol, right prior to sunrise, to prepare the body to wake up because its recovery processes have completed. I tell all my clients 7 to 8 hours should be the goal. And if you don't feel refreshed, try to make some of that up throughout the week. I think 20-minute naps are fantastic if you can sprinkle one in here and there. I'm a huge sleep guy, always have been. And someone once said, I think it was John Meadows, who said the two most anabolic things on earth are food and sleep. And I think he's right.
I've routinely had better results, my body composition, when I've been on it in terms of sleep. By the nature of my issues, I don't sleep for 8 hours straight, 6 hours straight. I tend to sleep biphasically. So I sleep maybe an average night, maybe 10:30 till 1 or 2 a.m. I'll be awake for an hour as if I'm awake. Like I could do anything pretty much. I could run up a hill. I couldn't run up a hill, but I could think of something I could cognitively work. Then I'll go back to sleep again for about another 3 hours. Then I'd say maybe half the days I'll have a 20-minute nap in the afternoon. And yeah, I mean, I find as a carnivore, I need less sleep. So I function just as well on 5 or 6 hours versus 8 hours. I think the detox need is a bit less. That's just been my experience, though. I noticed this with a lot of carnivores, they tend to sleep less.
I agree with that. When I was carnivore, I could do 6 hours and feel really good. And when I consume carbohydrate, it gives me more restful sleep. So it may be because I have more carbs in me that it's causing me to sleep longer. Could be the cortisol suppression. And it's something that I routinely do for my clients who can't sleep well, is I'll tell them to take in 2 tablespoons of raw honey right before they go to bed with a little bit of salt. And almost all of them always report back that did the trick. So yeah, I'm a big believer in that, but yeah, I for sure, carnivores may need a little less. I noticed that too, but for me, I always push for that 7 to 8 hours.
Yeah. I think ideally we should sleep as much as we can that our body wants. I think the problem that a lot of people have that perhaps don't realize is, I'm tired in the afternoon, I'm going to have a cup of coffee. It's it's the opposite of what your body's telling you to do. I think obviously people need to work, they need to go out and do their stuff each day, and they might need to feel more energetic. But I think that's a bottleneck we should try to overcome as anyone, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm big on circadian health with most of my clients, and when I was crunching the numbers as well and looking at my past data, I found the ones that tend to the ones that stick in my head as being clients that had better results were always the ones that slept better, had better routines. The worst ones were always people that had night shift work, or people that travel for work, business meetings and stuff like that.
Yep,
they tend to always get the shittest results. So
that's been my experience as well.
Yeah. All right, we're going to leave it there because Rob's having a hypoglycemic attack.
Yep, I got to go get apples and carrots pronto.
That's it. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks very much for watching, guys. We're going to aim to do these roughly every 2 weeks if we can, depending on our schedules. We'll do our best. And if you want to watch more, subscribe to both myself and Rob Goodwin on the screen right now. You can find both our channels using the names on the screen. Check out Rob's stuff as well. We highlighted his excellent coaching services earlier and consultations. I highly recommend booking them in. And also join the Carnivore Bodybuilding Facebook page, which you'll find us on quite a bit. So yeah,
absolutely.
All right, take care, guys.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.